Praise be to Allah. How about yourself?
I'm doing great by Allah's grace and mercy.
That's
Good to hear from you,
blessing.
sis.
You too. You too.
Let's see. Do we have anyone on the Zoom meeting that has any understanding with regards to electricity or how computers work or anything like that?
To a certain extent.
Okay. I'm just going to throw this idea out here just to kind of get the thoughts to put a little oil on the rusty locks here. Let me see. This is just to kind of get some thoughts going. Okay. I'm probably gonna do this as a class at some point in time in the future. But this is just based on a concept. Do we know what a what if analysis is? Can anyone pull it up real quick? It's called a what if analysis.
Yes, sir. Brother Luke, that used to be one of my favorite things to work in the Excel spreadsheet. The what if formula.
Okay.
One of my favorite things. Yes, sir.
So, Sister Tina, how did that work? How did the what if part of the spreadsheet work?
Well, from what I remember, because it was so many years ago, back in the 90s, you put a certain formula of cells, you put a certain formula in the cell, and according to what you're trying to predict, those cells, the formula that you put in the cell will give you the answer. You know, that's the best way I can explain it from what I remember about it. I just used to love the prediction part of it. And I thought I really love that.
Okay. The what if analysis, when I marry it with the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, it kind of goes along these lines. The minister has told us that whoever determines the diameter, I believe it's the diameter of either your knowledge or your thinking, will pretty much control the circumference of your activity, correct? We're all familiar with that quote.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the thought is, everything that's inside the circumference of the circle would represent what you understand, correct? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So everything outside circumference would represent things that you don't understand. I mean, that's a simple analogy, yes?
Yes, sir.
So the what if analysis, and I think L. Ron Hubbard mentioned something along those lines. If we pose a question that exists outside the circumference, that means we pose a question with regards to something that we don't understand, but we pose the question. Then what happens to the diameter now? The diameter gets extended to that what if, right?
Right. Yes, sir.
So the diameter becomes longer, and what happens to the circumference?
It becomes wider.
Okay, which means when we ask the what if questions, when we question things, we may not understand what we're asking. But just the fact that we have the question, that question will take us outside of our comfort zone. And if we can find answers to those questions, it just expanded or elongated the diameter of our thinking, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In computer technology, and I'm not a computer technician, but in electronics, there's something called a capacitor. And the way a capacitor works on a basic level is, for example, on the cell phones, if there's a problem with the cell phone, you'll contact the company. The first thing they'll tell you to do is remove the battery and then wait 45 seconds, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the purpose of taking the battery out and waiting 45 seconds, because after you take the battery out, the cell phone has a capacitor, and the capacitance of that capacitor could be 45 seconds, meaning that capacitor stores electrical charge. Even though the battery is taken out, it'll store charge for a certain amount of time. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so then when you take the battery out and you drain the capacitor and the phone is completely off, they'll tell you put the battery back in, and then the phone will boot back up, and hopefully the error or the glitch will correct itself. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was looking at that same. Yes, ma'am, Sister Peggy. I'll make sure it gets posted, God willing. I was looking at that same concept, and this is just again just to get our thoughts going. I was looking at that same thought process with regards to our thinking, and I was saying that you have a battery and you have a capacitor. The battery is long-term energy, and if you remove the battery, then you have short-term energy. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the strength of that capacitor, let's say you had an error with the battery, but you want to switch batteries out. I mean, you can take out the old battery and you might have enough juice in the capacitor to keep the system running until you put the new battery in. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The topic that came to mind was called mental capacitance. And the thought that came to mind was, how much mental capacitance do we have stored up in the absence of the minister? When the minister departs, how much energy will we have contained in our own thinking in order to keep our light on in the absence of a battery? And you understand how I'm using the battery as a representation of the minister, correct?
Yes, sir.
Because our light is based on the battery, yes?
The
light is based on the battery. But if you remove the battery, how much capacitance do we have to keep our own light going in his absence? Does that make sense?
That's a good question.
Yes, sir.
Right? So the notes I wrote down, the power source will be gone for approximately 3 years. Do we have enough mental capacitance to store spiritual energy so we can keep our light burning in his absence? Just something to think about, right?
Yes, sir. That sounds like I can't remember that topic that was discussed. Oh God, I can't even remember the words, but it had to do with the person being with us and us taking on. Oh God, I can't remember. Oh, go ahead, Brother Lukman. It may come to me.
Go ahead, Brother Eric.
One thing I'd like to remind us is that it says the minister would not leave us until the Christ form has been installed in all of us. So now, if we have the Spirit of Christ in us, so that's when we are operating at the same level of energy that he is operating. And not only that, we can even be charged remotely by him. The same way the Muslim Elijah Muhammad, we charge him all the time. And if you look at it, there are 3 stages in this work. Master Father Muhammad came, he did his work and left. What happened after that? There was a fall. Why? Because we did not have that Christ spirit yet in us.
No capacitance.
That's correct. The second stage of it, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad took over. He did an excellent job with us. We were all marveled with it. As soon as he departed, same thing occurred. Another fall. And if you look at in the Supreme Wisdom, there is a question that is asked of us regarding the final exam. So now in that exam, are we going to fall again? But the Muslim Muhammad already tell us the nation will fall, but will rise never to fall again. So that means there will be enough of us who would have that spirit of Christ that can cause the demise of this world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be done with gun or a nuclear bomb or anything of that sort. It's just the truth that you're going to hurl at falsehood that's going to destroy it all.
I'm glad you used that phrase, brother, because you're going to be astounded by Allah's grace what is in that ayat when we clear it in Arabic today.
Wow, no kidding.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Thank you. Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. The magnet. That's what I was trying to remember. Remember when we did the when you did it on the magnet?
Yes. Yes, the three types of magnets.
Right. And so that I guess it was the first type or the third type. I can't remember the order in which it went, but the type where the magnet held was connected to the main magnet and held
held its charge.
Yes, held its charge. So what you just said reminded me of that. Okay.
Yes, we have the three types of magnets. Yeah, we did that. Ooh, that was some years ago, wasn't it?
Not too long, maybe last year.
Maybe last year? Okay.
Maybe. Yeah. You hold the charge. I mean, you're connected to the magnet, but then when the magnet is no longer the main magnet, or however it was said, was no longer attached to you, you still hold that charge.
You still maintain the charge.
Still maintain the charge, right?
Praise be to Allah. And for those, thank you, Sister Tina. For those that might be interested, I know that Zoom meeting is on the YouTube platform. Okay. So what's the lesson in this? What's the whole lesson? If everyone could just jot down, but first, let me see. First, Sister Jaslyn, Assalamu alaikum. You're on mute if you're trying to say anything.
She's just taking a snooze.
Sister Anya.
Well, like a salam, I'm sorry.
Okay, not a problem.
It was
good.
Yes, man. Assalamu family.
Wow.
I was just, I came on late, but I was just listening to what everyone shared. And Brother Eric, actually, when I was listening, he actually had spoken different than what I was going to offer, but kind of similar. When you asked about whether or not there was enough charge, it made me think of the actual meaning of Christ. Will there be enough of us that's going to discipline ourselves to continue to crush the evil within ourselves and let
that's right.
That properly reflect wherever that it'll be so much of us that's striving or doing righteousness, that we crush that evil, that we definitely will knock the brains out of the falsehood. And I think that's what we have to come to is, are we really going to be ourselves? as Master Muhammad instructed us to do. And I think if enough of us love Allah and Islam and ourselves enough, that we will crush that evil. And it takes me to where the scripture says Allah's will is going to be perfected, though the polytheists be averse. Well, if we discipline ourselves enough to be crushers of evil, that's where the perfecting of his light, we're going to be the ones that's going to perfect this light, because the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that we are all Allah. So it's all about our discipline and our self-love. And do we love ourselves enough to be ourselves? And I think that's where the victory is going to come, when we demonstrate just how much we love ourselves, where we can discipline ourselves to crush that evil within ourselves, and that will be a domino effect.
I'm glad you go there. I'm truly glad you go there. Because if you look at it, this is my observation. I observe it in me first, and I observe my surrounding in the teaching. We always assume that the work is to be done with the outside world. I'm going to fish, I'm going to bring the fish and this and that and the other. And we want to correct the whole world. But we never see the self. The correction never, is very seldom we would apply whatever the lesson is to say, oh, let me see myself there. Where are my flaws? But I can see what Brother Lukman is doing. I could see Sister Tina, I could see Sister Jaslyn, but I am the Holy One. So I do not have those flaws. But when we start looking at the self and correcting the self, now it would be easier for the outside world to start correcting self. It's not you correcting them, it's them correcting their own self based on the example they are following. They see you, they see the minister, they see the messenger as an example that isn't that we are called to do, to be a follower, right? And last Sunday, I believe Brother Ishmael addressed that. He said the messenger has many believers, but very few followers. What is the difference? I thought you said you got to be a believer. Anybody can believe in anything, but it's not easy to follow nothing. Anyway, I'll leave it to you, Brother Lukman.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see, Sister Sultana is with us, but she cannot, she is in a place where she can't speak, and that's fine. Sister Anya, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you?
I'm fine, praise be to Allah.
And how's that young brother that's there with you?
He's fine, getting younger and younger because he's a brand new person. Walking around here talking about how our Savior has arrived, chapter 23. He makes all things new. Okay. And that means me and you.
Allah Akbar.
Praise be to Allah.
Okay. So he's reading chapter 23, and we're going to be dealing with Psalms 23. There's a connection there.
Yes, sir.
So here's the last thing I would like us to do in this exercise before we get into the topic. On a sheet of paper, on your notes, whatnot, write down the 5 components of a cycle of action. So you want to write start, growth, conservation, decay, and then stop. And we're going to use this to understand we're going to study a capacitance theology, I guess you could say, after learning Islam, which is electricity, and electricity is Islam, because electricity is mathematics, correct? Yeah, with me?
Yes, sir.
It's because nobody likes coming on camera. Some of y'all, I don't even know what you look like. Anyway. So here's a real quick synopsis of how this works. You have a current that will flow through a wire, and it will cause a light to come on. Okay, so now mock up in your mind wires and a light, and you have a battery or a light, a power source, energy source, and it's flowing. And as long as it's flowing, the light stays on steady, correct? Does that make sense? Can you see that in your mind?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay, now something happens. Maybe there's a fluctuation, something happens, there's a storm, and you see the light kind of flicker, right? Okay, the light flickers. Another word for flicker is glimmer, okay? But what it's describing is you have a fluctuation in the power source that causes the light to dim and get bright, dim and get bright. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. If you put a capacitor is in that line, because as the current is flowing, it keeps the capacitor full. So even there's fluctuations on this side, the fluctuations on this side will not produce a fluctuation in the light because there's a capacitor connected. Does that make sense?
Okay. Okay.
Meaning, even if there's fluctuations, the light will remain steady.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now, the thought that came to mind was this. Have you ever experienced in life where your light has fluctuated because of circumstances that have taken place? Meaning, has your light fluctuated? Have you flickered? Or have we flickered? Have we glimmered? Have we kind of dimmed and got bright as a result of things?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the question is this. If Allah is the source of that fluctuation, because he allowed it to happen, correct?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The question is he causing the fluctuation in order to cause you to fluctuate, or is he causing the fluctuation in order to get you to find the capacitor that's within yourself so that your light can remain steady? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
I picture it in my mind. He's causing the condition for the fluctuation.
Because he wants you and I to find a way to keep our light steady so we can find the light within ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
How could you be a mathematician without solving any problem?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now all of this, everything that I'm blessed to do by Allah's grace, the very first ayat I remember reading. I knew nothing about the Nation of Islam. It was my senior year in high school. It was 1987. I used to always hang out at the bookstore. And I always spent my time in the New Age section. And the interesting thing was, I still remember, it was called Borders Bookstore. This is back when bookstores actually were in the mall.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything about the Islam. I didn't know anything about Minister Farrakhan, Nation of Islam, Most High Elijah Muhammad. Didn't know nothing about that. No, I take that back. I remembered seeing a video on Yo MTV Raps. Now this is going way back. And it was a rapper called Just Ice. And in the video, he held up a book called Message to the Black Man. That was my introduction, I think, to the nation on one level, was Yo MTV Raps, Message to the Black Man. Something within me kind of guided me over to, there was a bookcase to my right, and something just said, and it directed me to one particular book. I'll never forget this. All the books, they were all different versions of the Bible. But on the bottom row, closest to the ground, guess what books they had down there?
Yes,
they had the Holy Qur'ans down there.
Holy Qur'an, okay.
The very first, I was directed to one particular book. I pulled out that book. It was the Holy Qur'an. And the very first ayat I remember reading was Surah 2, ayat number 26. And it says, Allah disdains not to set forth any parable, a gnat, or anything above that. We've read that parable before, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when you look at a gnat or anything above that, my understanding will be that a gnat represents the smallest thing that they could observe at that time period. So from the smallest thing you can observe to the largest thing you could observe, everything is a parable. Does that make sense? But now, so if everything is a parable, everything is a communication. Everything in the universe, the scripture says everything in creation is a word of Allah, correct? So if we were to take that same ayat in modern time, we could say a quark or an atom or anything above that. Does that make sense? Y'all with me?
Yeah.
Yes.
So everything in creation is a communication in the form of a formula. It is a communication that's been distilled down into a physical object. And then as we study the physical object, we begin to understand the communication. And that communication is taking place between us and Allah. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I say that to say that that was one of the groundbreaking events of my life, was that one particular ayat that has stayed with me all of these years, that everything. And then when I came in contact with the minister and Mother Tanetta and Brother Jabril and Brother Abdullah, excuse me, Brother Nuri and Sister Ava, and all those great heavy hitters, it just added more of an understanding that whenever we study the universe, we're actually in communication with Allah. Does that make sense?
Wait, say that again, Brother Lupin.
Whenever we study creation, we are actually in a communication with Allah.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if you tie the communication cycle to the study of a subject, and then you marry onto that what the minister has said about studying. He says, first, place Allah at the center of your study, and two, whatever you study, make it as though you're studying an aspect of yourself, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So everything in the universe that we study, mathematics, physics, engineering, chemistry, biology, botany, everything we study is really a different variation or different aspects of us studying our own essence. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So God willing, this will actually be a Zoom meeting at another time. That was just something just to get us going. However, or maybe not however, we want to get into the 23rd Psalms. Now, what is it about the 23rd Psalms? A couple of weeks ago, again, I always have to say this, I'm a firm believer. This is just my humble opinion. The scripture says that Allah takes men's souls at night, and then those souls, some are withheld, that death is pronounced on them, and some are allowed to return, correct?
Yes, sir.
My thought process is, my humble opinion is, that when we return with an assignment.
Most certainly.
it wouldn't make any sense for us, for Allah to take our souls at night and to return us as the same individual we were when he took us. That's just my opinion. So the thought is we come back with something that we didn't have the previous day. And what happens is, soon thereafter we wake up, what we dream about kind of fades away and we forget what we dreamt about, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's like part of our memory is like a capacitor. It distills out. And if you don't write certain things down immediately, then there's certain things that kind of dissipate. And then later time in the day or the week or month, something will take place and it'll trigger a thought that will remind you of the dream. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sister Ava has told us that those dreams are communications. So what I strive to do is, as soon as I wake up, whatever thought is on my mind when I wake up, I try to write that thought down. And then that thought written down becomes an assignment. And I go and I put my mind to that and say, okay, what is it about that? Why did I bring that back with me? What do I have to study in that? Why is that significant? Okay, go ahead, Sister Tracy.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
I was just thinking about what you just said about going away at night, and it brought to mind one of my grandchildren. She was about 4, and she was explaining all these different things to me that takes place, one of the reasons she's here. And some of it fell into some of the teachings, which I found interesting. But one of the things she said to me was like, well, you know, Mama, I go away at night. Me and others are taken away at night, and we train at night. And then we come back here and we use those skills. And she was saying the purpose of what they do and some of the things she said, and I said, well, what does it look like? She says, it's like we're in this big library. Now she's 4 years old, so she don't know nothing about a library yet. But she was saying it's like a big library, a big room, and we all go in there to study and then we come back. So when you just said that, it brought to my attention back to my memory of what she was telling me.
Wow.
How beautiful is that?
Just wanted to share that.
That's the reason why that is profound. Wow. That actually brought back a dream I had. When did I have that dream? I wrote it down. I'd have to check it. I remember, oh, wow. A couple of years ago, I guess. I was in a classroom and I remember sitting at this desk. And if I remember correctly, the book I was looking had a whole lot of numbers and stuff in it. And I think in the dream, it was either the Most High Elijah Muhammad was teaching or it was Master Farah Muhammad teaching. I'd have to go back and read I keep a dream journal. But that's interesting. That is very interesting. I think that's what's so important, why we should write down what we come back with. But thank you for that, Sister Tracy. That was awesome. That was awesome. Yes, that was awesome. Go away to study. And then they come back. That's interesting. I think I just had a paradigm shift. It's not that one. That's intense. Okay. Something within me was like, you have to memorize the 23rd Psalms. So we've heard the 23rd Psalms enough where, at least for me, I half of it, I think I had already memorized. So I made it a point to memorize the whole 23rd Psalms. And then what I do is throughout the day, I go over it line by line by line. I go back to the beginning, I go over it again, I pick up the additional data I can contact. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And then it began to dawn on me, the more I would go over it, go back to the beginning, go over it again, I was picking up more and more data. I began to see it as a demo kit for processing. So just for today, we're going to deal with one aspect of it. And so I began to go down this road, going on this journey of going through the 23rd Psalms and doing word clearing, connecting it to the Holy Qur'an, and then the subject just exploded like an atom. Does that kind of make sense?
Sure.
So I wanted to share with the believers what I was blessed to see, with the thought that Allah will bless you as well to see other things as well. Okay, so let me first. These things always come on. Okay, let me put that up here. Let's put this up there. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So we're really only going to do one aspect of it today. I think as of right now, I have it divided up into 3 parts. But just this one part alone I was tone 100 going through this with all the things that I was being blessed to find in the 23rd Psalms and its connection to our Islam and connected to the tech. So my understanding, the 23rd Psalms has 6 verses. But what I did was I divided the 23rd Psalm into 12 parts. Okay. One of the reasons why I deal with the number 12 often is there's an ayat in the Holy Qur'an that speaks about Moses marching on to the rock with his staff. And he struck the rock and 12 springs came forth, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the lesson that I learned from that is when I study a particular subject, I try to divide that subject into 12 parts. I try to break it down into 12 parts. And then I try to march onto that subject with my staff, meaning I try to go at that subject where my mind is and then study it. And I study each individual component. And then I try to bring the components together to get a better understanding of that subject. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yes.
I march onto the rock with so marching onto the rock means I'm trying to put my mind on something that might be difficult to understand. But I take what is difficult and I break it down into 12 parts. And then I try to understand each part and put each part together so I can understand what I thought was difficult has now become very easy. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the Valley of the Shadow of Death. Can the 23rd Psalms be used as a demo for processing? So I took the 23rd Psalms and I put it into what I would call a 12-step gradient. So we know it says what? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Now, we've all seen this 100 times, correct?
About.
Yes, sir.
Or 1,000 times. So what I want to do, I'm going to give you a real quick explanation of each of these verses, but at a later time, we're going to go in more detail. I'm just going to run over real quick how I saw the processing in this. So when we look at, okay, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Okay. Now, on one level, when you look at the word Lord, if you translate that into the Arabic, you have the word Rab, and the word Rab also means teacher. Could we say that the Lord could be a representation of the characteristics of an auditor? Meaning, as a shepherd guides the sheep, an auditor is guiding the pre-clear. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not saying the auditor is the Lord. That's not what I'm saying. We're using mathematical equivalence here. Okay. When I was looking at this, when we look at he maketh me to lie down in green pastures represents a place where the sheep can feed and be comfortable, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
They have enough around them. They're satisfied where they are. It kind of reminded me that if we just follow what we have been given, our green pastures can be the teachings of the Most High Elijah Muhammad and information that the minister has guided us to study, correct? Meaning we have plenty to feed on in the midst of all the madness that's taking place. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This third part where it says, he leadeth me beside the still waters, I saw this from two different perspectives. One perspective was, he leadeth me by the still waters. I mean, he guides me to the still waters. But then I asked the question, is it possible that this could also mean that when I can still the waters of my thinking, when I can sit still, when I can be still, then that's when he gives me the guidance I need that will restore my soul. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Meaning we need to learn to sit still without the internet, without TV, without the cell phones, without all of the distractions. If I can just sit still, not only will he restore my soul, but he allows me to lie down in green pastures. I can feed on his universe and on his wisdom that is contained within me. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
We all have the ability to go within if we sit still, and he will lead us by our still waters and show us the green pastures, give us a greater understanding of his teaching, and that will restore our soul. And as a result, what happens? That is what will lead me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake, correct?
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
But in doing all of that, what does that do? That prepares us for the next thing. Yea, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. But I had to be prepared for the valley. Yes, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The reason why I fear no evil is because I already understand that the Lord is my shepherd. I have the ability to be led by the still waters, and my soul has been restored, and I'm on the path of righteousness with the help of Allah. So I'm ready when the trial comes. The trial is the valley of the shadow of death, yes?
Yes, sir.
So it's like a cycle of action. The start is 1 through 5. That's what prepares me. The 6 is what is going to take place that I'm being prepared for. And 7 through 7 through 12 shows me what will be the outcome of what to take place during the process. Thy rod and thy staff will comfort me. Now, I believe the minister taught on this before, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I'm thinking that when the rod and thy staff represents the knowledge of God and the law of God. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I believe that's what he said. I can't remember 100%, but I'm looking at rod and staff, meaning the staff is the knowledge and the rod is the law. And those two things is what comforts me, or what takes place. Thou prepares the table before me in the presence of my enemy. So even in the midst of all the madness, if I stay connected, I will still be cared for. And as a result, what happens? Allah will anoint our heads with oil, meaning if we have oil in our lamp, then our lamp will continue to burn, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the cup runneth over, meaning Allah will inspire us with so much based on our connection with the minister, that even though we're in the valley of the shadow of death, all these things will still keep us. So in the absence of the minister, the rod and the staff will comfort us. We'll have a table in the midst of the madness that's taking place. If we stay connected to the minister, our heads will continue to be anointed with oil and our cup will runneth over. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And in the absence of the minister, goodness and mercy is going to follow us. And we will still continue to dwell in the house of the Lord, not only during that time in the minister's absence, but God willing, if we are faithful in our representation, then we will remain in that house after he returns. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And at a latter part of time, we're going to go into the same 23rd Psalm and look at how each of these parts correspond to auditing. So this same 23rd Psalm is something that's taking place within our own mind. Does everyone follow that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Might not be able to see it wholeheartedly, but when we go into it, we'll understand it a little bit better. But today we just want to look at the valley of the shadow of death, because that's where everything's going to begin. So here's the first thought. This would be an attempt to use the 23rd Psalm as a guide or demo for the elements of processing. So we're going to look at different types of processing and connect it to the 23rd Psalms. And then if we already have the 23rd Psalms memorized, then it'll help us to have a greater understanding of processing and what it can produce. So we're going to use these verses to provide a better understanding of the relationship between the science of the mind and the application of the wisdom that's found in the Bible. And then we're going to look at different aspects of processing. You have what's called subjective processing, we have objective processing, and then we have what's called self-audit, which really is a self-analysis. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do we know the difference between subjective processing and objective processing?
No, sir.
Okay. Subjective processing is when we take a person back in the time trap and we're going within the person. We're going on the time trap, we're locating the lots, the engrams, things of that nature. Objective processing, and you've probably seen this if you've ever been to one of the orgs, you'll see them and say, okay, look at that wall. Thank you. Go over to that wall. Thank you. Touch that wall. You've seen that before, right? They're connecting with things on the outside. Have you ever seen that before?
Yes.
So connecting to things on the outside is what is used to bring a person into present time. What would be considered light processing or self-analysis would be something like you've heard before, go for a walk. You've seen that before, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Go for a walk. What we're doing is you're actually going for a walk. Well, what is it? If you spend all your time looking at your cell phone, then your space is the size of your cell phone, correct? If you are just at your computer screen, then your space, your focus has been the size of your computer screen. And what that does is keeping the mind confined to a small space for a prolonged period of time can cause dramatization. Does everyone follow that?
Yes, sir.
So when we go for a walk, what we're doing is we're expanding our visual plane. We're gaining space. And just by going for a walk, it takes our focus off of our phone and our computer, and you look at the tree, you look at the birds, you look at the clouds. Our vision is being expanded. That's called objective processing. That's something that's used to get us into present time. Okay. So the question is, can we marry the science of the mind, the Bible, and the supreme wisdom? And that's the goal for today. Can we find concepts in other religions that also have ARC with this data? So another goal down the road, we're going to see how the same concepts that we're finding in the Bible, we can also find these concepts in the Dhammapada, the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao Te Ching. Because really, when you look at all the religions and you look at the prophets and what they brought at that time period, they really brought a science of the mind for that particular people at that particular time period, but it was given in the language of symbolism and metaphor and allegory. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And then you say, well, why wouldn't Allah just speak plain? Well, my thought would be, and this is also based on page 19 of Closing the Gap, that Allah teaches in the language of pictures. So when you learn, or when we learn things based on pictures, we are engaging the feminine side of our thinking, the feminine side of our brain. We're reawakening the feminine aspect of self. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
That's why if you notice in the problem book, some of the questions you technically cannot answer them literally. You have to engage those questions with both left brain and right brain thinking. If you try to just do it from left brain, it won't make any sense. Okay. Quick overview. So part one, we're going to look at this from the perspective of subjective processing. You got 23rd Psalms, like Dianetics Book 1 auditing. At a later time, we're going to look at it from the perspective of objective processing. And then, God willing, we'll look at it from the perspective of what's called light processing. So we're learning one chapter of the Bible, but we're going to make it applicable to 3 different aspects of processing. Any questions up to this point? Right. So real briefly, we'll hit this. 3 types of processing. So you have so subjective processing, or Dianetics Book 1 is also called deep processing. Self-audit technically is not that an individual is auditing themselves, like straight wire and things like that, is really gaining attention units and bringing a person into present time. Objective processing is now we're connecting with the outside universe. So in the Pilot Dictionary, it says it's subjective or deep processing is a class of processes which deal with the internal, out of sight, in his own mind world of the pre-clear recall, think or remember processes, which consult the pre-clear's mock-ups, thoughts, and considerations. Does that make sense? Does everyone follow that definition? This is what we're doing when we're doing Book 1 auditing, yes? Everyone still with me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So so when we talk about deep processing, okay, so this addresses what's called the basic cause and locates and reduces moments of physical pain and sorrow. So this is just another explanation of deep processing. It's done
that's when you're looking for the engram, right?
Yes, ma'am. That's when you're actually going on a time track looking for locks and engrams. That's called deep processing. Okay. So he said it's done without drugs or hypnosis. It's by an auditor, one who listens and computes. And auditors have either learned Dianetics after a thorough study of the basic text, Science of Survival, or they have been trained professionally at the Hubbard Dianetic Foundation. That's page 91 of self-analysis. So that's deep processing. Okay, you're going deep into the person's mind. From a Sufi standpoint, you're dealing with what's called the nafs. Okay, and if you remember in our study guides, there is a reference to Surah Al-Qiyamah, Surah 75, and in the footnotes and in the introduction, if I'm not mistaken, it talks about the three types of nafs. You have nafs amara, nafs lawama, and nafs mutma'inna. And when you clear the word for nafs amara is equivalent to or has ARC with the reactive mind. Nafs lawama is the self-accusing spirit, which we could say corresponds to a Dianetic release. And the nafs mutma'inna, or the nafs that is at peace, would be the Dianetic clear. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's light processing? This includes analytical recall of conscious moments. It is intended to raise tone and increase perception and memory. It often resolves chronic somatics or psychosomatic ills. That's from page 91, self-analysis. So when you do a self-analysis, you have those lists, correct?
Yes, sir.
Because remember a time when you did, or remember a time when you said, when you go through, and by picking up those moments, what you're doing is you're gaining back those attention units. And as you gain back attention units, what's happening? You're going up the scale, yes?
Yes, sir.
So straight wire is a type of audio which uses straight memory. So it strings a line between present time and some incidents in the past and strings that line directly and without any detours. Okay. Now, how many of us have actually ever used straight wire?
I have.
Okay. Let me get off the screen here. So if you've used straight wire before, just kind of raise your hand on the Zoom platform so I can see who's straight wire.
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody's used straight wire?
Yes, sir. I have.
You had used it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just a team had used straight wire. Okay. So the name straight wire comes from the action of the auditor stringing a straight wire of memory between the actual genus or origin of a condition and present time, thus demonstrating that there's a difference of time and space in the condition then in the condition now. The pre-clear, conceding this difference, then rids himself of the condition, or at least is able to handle it. Now, I want to share this. This is something else I'm working on, God willing. How many of us actually have self-analysis?
I do.
Sister Peggy, Sister Tina?
I do as well.
Okay. Now, here's the significance. In self-analysis, you have these lists. And as you go through the list, you're going back on the time track, you're locating something, you're in present time, and you're seeing that there's a difference between past and present, correct?
Yes.
And then as you can see a difference between past and present, then you get a little bit of case gain, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Try this. Try this exercise. Try the same concept, but use the 99 attributes. In other words, let's look at the word patience. If patience is at the top of the tone scale, what would be at the bottom?
Impatience.
Okay. Look at the prefix on the word impatience. What's the prefix?
Imp.
Yeah.
And what's an imp?
A little devil.
Little devil. Now, if we take the attributes of Allah, what's called the Al-Asma al-Husna, the 99 names, and we just start on As-Sabor, the patient, and we look at it as what's called in Dianetics a dichotomy. Okay, patience, impatience. If I were to do a straight wire right now and say, remember a time when you were impatient? Did you find one?
Too many to name.
You're flying down the time track, right? Okay. So now the way in self-analysis, it says you locate one, then it says, okay, go back a little further. Can you find one? Then it'll say, go back a little further. Okay. So now let's look at, think of a time when you were patient. Can you find one?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Can you find another one? So you see where we're going with this? What would be the result? What would be the result if we began to straight wire ourselves in conjunction with the 99 attributes? So when you look at Al-Fatiha, and it says, Allah is Maliki Yawm ad-Din, right?
Mm-hmm.
Master of the day of judgment. What would be the opposite of that? In other words, master of the day of judgment. Master, Maliki Yawm. When you clear the word Yawm, Yawm is talking in reference to time. And then judgment is the ability to make a decision. So Allah is Maliki Yawm ad-Din. So he has mastered, he is master of time and decision-making, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
The opposite of that would be someone who has not mastered time and has not mastered decision. Remember a time when you were late. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Remember a time when you made the wrong decision. And then you can go back a little bit further and go back further, right? As we're saying this, are you going back on your time track?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you can say, remember a time when you did not master time. What was the result? Remember a time when you did not make the right decision. What was the result? Then can you do dichotomy? Remember a time when you were on time. What was the result? Remember a time when you made the correct decision. So you're doing a dichotomy, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But what we're doing is we're using the character or the attributes of Allah in order to straight wire ourselves. What would be the result if we went through all 99 attributes? Something to think about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is this making any sense? Is this causing us to kind of think on a different level now?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Marrying the supreme wisdom with the supreme technology, taking the tools that we're learning, taking the tools that we're learning and making it applicable or connecting it with what we already have so we can take what we already have on another level now, yes?
Yes, sir.
Straight wire ourselves according to the character of Allah. So as we're reading through the Holy Qur'an, you know how there's some parts where you read through and there's a part where it says, and at this point you stop and make a prostration?
Yes.
What if, here we go, what if analysis. What if, as you read through the Holy Quran and you come to an attribute, for example, if I come through and I just happen to hit an ayat that says, Allah is the loving and the kind. What if I just stop at that point and do a Islamic straight wire on myself? When have I been kind? When have I been unkind? When have I been loving? When have I not been loving? And then just go through a straight wire based on that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
As you're sharing this with us, would that be a process of purging or just acknowledgement?
I think it would do both, because if you have not read self-analysis yet, I would recommend, because Dianetics, if you haven't read Dianetics, that's a tremendous undertaking. That the book itself is very intimidating. Self-analysis is a book that's thin enough where you can get through self-analysis within a couple of days based on your schedule. But if you look, as you're reading self-analysis, if you read self-analysis with the mindset of making it applicable to the 99 attributes and using the book in conjunction with the lists that are already there, you can use them with the lists that are already there. But there's nothing that says you cannot produce your own lists. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
In other words, and this part actually comes from something I was just studying in the student hat. The main part of any problem, the first part of any problem is the inability to confront it. And the first part of solving a problem is to confront it. And I'm gonna say this part, and this is just my opinion, and I'm not trying to put any judgment on any of us. This is just generally speaking. Part of the reason why we don't study the self-improvement study guides is because we don't have the ability to confront ourselves. That's just me, and I'm included in that. I don't study it like I should. Okay. It's confronting certain things in order to solve them. Oh, let's see. We got Craig Paul.
Paul. Yes. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you?
All praises due to Allah. I'm well, sir.
And may I ask who invited you?
Sister Anaya, Brother Wahid's wife.
She's always recruiting. Always recruiting. I'm just doing security. Whenever I see brand new names, I'm always just scanning the horizons. But we thank you for spending some time with us, and we hope there's something here that you can gain, and we hope that there's something you can share that'll allow us to gain something.
Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. Let's see, where were we? Self-improvement, confronting. Does that make sense, everyone?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get back to the PowerPoint. Okay. Okay. So, Sister Jaslyn, I think that last paragraph might answer what you just, I'll read that again. It says, the name straight wire comes from the action of the author stringing a straight wire of memory between the actual genus or origin of a condition and present time, thus demonstrating that there's a difference of time and space in the condition than in the condition now. So the pre-clear, conceding this difference, then rids himself of the condition, or at least is able to handle it. So part of the problem of what we have is dramatization is the inability to discern the difference between past and present, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in straight wire, we're showing that these are two different aspects of time. And then all I'm saying is, why not take the 99 attributes? And I know what I was about to say. If we go into our own study guides, that's where I was going with that. If we go into our own study guides, and if we are honest with ourselves, go through the restrictive law, go through the general rules of conduct, and identify your four devils. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if we all identify our four devils, why, and if we're honest with ourselves, why could we not formulate our own personalized list to straight wire ourselves? So if there's something so if we take anything off of the restrictive law, and in the past we said, okay, take one of those things from the restrictive law and hit it from the perspective of the four flows. Because if we're breaking a restrictive law, then that is either based upon something that was done to us. If we're breaking the law, it could be something we're doing to someone else. It could be based on what we observed being done between two people, or something we're doing to self. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're taking the tools, but we're marrying the supreme wisdom with the supreme technology. And if we go through our restrictive law and our guiding rules of conduct, I was about to say general, and I heard Sister Tina correct me.
Oh.
I heard your voice, and it snapped me back. Guiding rules of conduct. We can locate four devils, or there might be more than four devils. Who knows? But the bottom line is, now we can straight wire ourselves and possibly pinpoint what we're doing and why we're doing it. And if we can make these connections, what happens? It takes some of the charge off of it, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then if we get to a point where there's still something there, then we need to get in contact with someone and then do some deep processing, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Is all this making sense up to this point, family?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, my brother. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So objective processing is a class of processes which call for the person to spot or find something exterior to himself to carry out the auditing command. Now I have to say this. The first time I saw this, I was like, what in the hell is this? And that don't make no damn sense. Now this is back in 2011. This was when I was a brand new Dianetic baby. I'm just starting just introduced to the process as far as extension course. And I'm observing something in the org, and I see this person say, okay, go over to that wall, touch it, thank you. Go over, and in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, this is craziness. What the hell is this? But then learning the science behind it, it makes total sense now. Did anyone ever experience something like that when they observe certain things? I guess I'm the only one, huh?
No.
I'll just call it what it is. I was not a full believer at the beginning, but I'm a full believer now.
Like when you say, has anyone experienced that?
Meaning observe something that didn't make any sense and you thought it was kind of crazy.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir.
Okay. I just have to be honest with you. I was like, I can still see it. I was running my drills for the Dianetics, and then at the same time I was running a drill, I saw someone else going through a process where they were told to go touch the wall. Thank you. And I'm sitting here in my mind, I'm thinking, what the hell we gotten ourselves into? Anyway, so objective processes, it locates the person, his environment, establishes direct communication, and brings them into present time. Now, here's the question for us. If we're being put in contact with our environment, when we go through our problem book, and Allah is asking us questions like, how many round trips can we make to the far planet Pluto at the speed of thought? Wouldn't that be like objective processing?
Yes, sir.
You know, now what if as you're walking outside, you look up into the sky and you say to yourself, I wonder how fast it would take for me to go to Pluto at the speed of thought. Just that thought alone, as I'm saying it, gives me a little bit of case game, because it makes me think outside of my circumference. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, sir.
And just to kind of quiz us, who remembers how fast it takes to travel to Pluto one trip at the speed of thought? You remember how fast it takes to travel one just there based on the speed of thought?
No, sir.
It was 0.1877 of a second.
1877, huh?
Which we can round up to 19th of a second. Sister Ani, I saw your hand up there. You have something for us?
Oh, I was just going to make a comment about the objective processing, but since you moved on to another subject,
Oh, no. Go ahead. No.
I recall my first experience with it. We were living back in Phoenix, and the sister took me outside and just had me, and she didn't explain what that this was objective processing and what it was for. She just said that this was another exercise that we were going to do, and she had me observe something like way in the distance, and then she had me look at another object, look at this rooftop, look at this pole, different things like that. And I remember in my mind thinking, why in the world are we doing this? What am I supposed to get out of it? But just because I've got this curious mind, it's just like, just go with the process and just see where this leads to. But what I've found in the objective processing, I really like it as a tool, and because I can also apply it to my, just use it myself at any point, oftentimes when my thoughts are scattered, or if I've even used it if somebody has approached me with something that I really, it upset my spirit. I've used that technique to recenter myself and help me get past whatever the block is at that particular time. So I like it not only as the auditor taking me through the process, but the fact that I can take myself through the process.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Sister Anya. Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. Did you just say, okay, what is that answer you gave again for the speed of thought to Pluto?
From the Earth to Pluto, if you do one trip to Pluto at the speed of thought, it's 0.1877 of a second.
0.1877 of a second. So that's 1877.
Right.
That's the birth year of Master Fraud Muhammad. Okay.
Right. And if you were to actually do the math on that problem, the question is, how many round trips would you make?
Okay.
If you do the math, you actually will come to, you'll make 53 trips, but you have to get round trips. You have to divide 53 by 2. So you'll make actually 26 round trips.
Okay.
But now, if you look at the fact that you have to divide 53 by 2, and you get 26 round trips, that means you get 226, and then you get 0.1877. You actually get the day, the month, and the year that Master Farah Muhammad was born, February 26th, 77.
Praise be to Allah. Okay.
Look at the actual math is 53.27. That's how the math works out. Exactly. If you look at the 53rd Surah and you read up to ayat number 7, it talks about the union between Master Prophet Muhammad and the Most High Elijah Muhammad. So the sun, meaning the savior, reaching Pluto. Pluto represents the messenger, correct? Have you ever heard that before?
I've never heard that.
Most High Elijah Muhammad referred to Pluto as the little fool, Platoon, the little fool.
Oh, yeah, I heard that. Yes.
Okay. So sunlight could be a demo for the savior, and Pluto could be a demo for the Most High Elijah Muhammad, and for light to travel. You see the connection? So there's more in our problem book. There's more in our lessons. There's harmonics of information, and each one of us is going to find something different. Each one of us is building our own part of the mother plane, and when we come together in meetings like this, we all bring our part. And so now what we do is we build a larger plane. Yes.
Yes, sir. And when you said 53 divided by 2, right? You have to divide. Okay,
but
that's
in order to divide it evenly, you got to take the 53, you got to reduce it down to 52 to get an even number.
okay. Okay. So what I see in the 2, the 53 divided by 2, and I write it down, I see the 2 backing the minister. The 53 is the star, the minister, and the 2 on the outside backing the minister.
See, that's what I'm talking about. You saw that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that one.
Thank you.
Oh, praise is due to Allah. Sister Denise.
Yes, sir. When you talked about how they say, look at this, look at that, and it at first it was I didn't look at it as redirection. When they first did it, I couldn't understand, why am I doing, look down, look up, why am I doing all this? And but it stabilizes you, because it keeps you going, because your thought is like that. To me, it's traveling real fast, the billion miles per second, and to keep you focused, but you can't see that keeping you focused. They taking me here, taking me there. When am I going to get focused? When am I going to settle down? And that's, I didn't know that misdirection or taking you in different direction can actually focus you, settle you down, give you peace. When you take your mind off of this thought that just has you, grab you. Yes, sir. As you was talking about that, I was thinking about that incident when they were saying, look out, look left, look right, look down, look up. And then they kept taking you to that. And I thought that was, that I'm going to get confused when they finish. But it actually focused you on where you need to be. Yes, sir. That's what came to my mind.
All praise due to Allah.
Yes,
Here's something else in the words of the oracle from the Matrix. Here's something else to cook your noodle. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Shayla.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you?
I am very blessed this day. We woke up, all of us.
Yes, we did. Either that or we're all gone, and this is the afterlife. Before we keep going, let me see. Brother James 41X. Assalamu alaikum. You're on mute if you're trying to respond. If you can't speak, that's all right.
Wow.
Sister Nyambi. Ooh, I haven't heard that name in a while. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
How
are you?
I'm doing fine.
I'm well, thank Allah. Thank you for asking. Happy Holy Day of Atonement.
Happy Holy Day of Atonement. Are you still on our email list?
I haven't seen anything lately.
Okay. Let's see. Let's see.
I can give it to Sister Anya.
Either that or you can put it in the chat. Either or, whatever's more comfortable.
Okay.
That's fine.
I can put it in the chat. Yes, sir.
Okay. Let's see.
Brother Luke Man, I'm able to respond if I can get in here. Salam alaikum.
Oh,
Happy
that's
Holy
Brother
Day,
James. Okay, the
everyone.
41X threw me off. Oh, brother.
Yes, sir.
How are
Praise be to Allah. How's everyone, family?
Doing fine, brother.
Good. Sister Shayla, praise be to Allah. Good to hear your voice, dear sister. This has been a blessing listening to the science, the holy science that everyone is sharing in. I appreciate it very much.
All praise due to Allah.
Great aid to me as well. So I'm just listening.
Okay.
And if I have something to contribute, I will. But that psalm you spoke is one of my favorite psalms. And
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely.
I've been in a still place observing and at the crossroads just looking deep within. I've been deep meditating, real deep meditating, and going into the reaches of the mind and the soul, confronting self, trying to gain more ground in self. And I appreciate when you said, if we can straight wire ourselves with the 99 attributes, that was profound. That gave me another perspective to look at.
All praise due to Allah.
So may Allah bless everybody. I've been thinking about you, Sister Shayla. I pray all is well for you and your family. You've truly been a blessing for your brother. And we got much to talk about. Talk to everybody later. Assalamu alaikum, Brother James.
Salam, sir. Real quick, there was something that popped in my head as Sister Denise was speaking. And this is why I always emphasize, whatever your cognitions are, please don't withhold them, because your cognition could be you could be the agent through which Allah uses to plant new seeds. Sister Denise, as you were speaking, the question came to mind, is objective processing in the Holy Qur'an? I thought, wait, who was it you that was just talking about the objective processing, or was that Sister Anya? Who was just talking about objective processing, looking outside at the...
Sister Denise.
Yes.
Okay, it was.
Yes, sir. When they tell you, to look to your left, look to your right, that really threw me off. I thought I'm gonna be confused when they done having me look this way, look up, look down, look to your left, look to your right, look outside, And I was like, what is this processing for?
Okay.
And then my mind settled. And I thought I'd be confused, all that looking here and stump your feet or whatever they have you doing. That I would be confused afterwards. But it actually settled me. It settled my mind. I don't know what it was, but anyway, it was going here and there. And I heard when you finished, I wanted to comment on the 23rd Psalms, as I heard you speak.
Okay.
But yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Sister Denise. Does everyone have their Holy Qur'an handy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
If you would, turn to Surah 7, ayat number 153.
153?
Surah 7, ayat 143.
143.
You want to read it or?
Sister, whoever wants to read that surah. Go down to where it says, he said. If you can see where it says he said. A couple of lines down in that ayat.
I don't mind.
Oh, yeah. He said, right after him, comma, him, he said.
Go ahead.
He said, "My Lord."
No. You know what? Just start from the beginning of the ayat. There's something I want to show us. It says, and when Moses came to our appointed time.
And when Moses came to, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Who wants it?
And when Moses came at our appointed time, and his Lord spoke to him, he said, "My Lord, show me thyself, so that I may look at thee." He said, "Thou canst not see me, but look at the mountain."
Okay, right there.
If it remains.
No, that's right there. That's good. Okay. He said, look at the mountain, right?
Right.
Yes, sir.
Is that objective processing?
I would say.
Yeah, I thought.
Okay. If we're to look at Surah 50, ayat number 6, it says, do they not look at the sky above them? So that means they look at the sky, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Is that objective processing?
Yes, sir.
So there's places in the Holy Qur'an where Allah is saying, look at.
Yes.
See the birds, how we restrain them in the air?
Oh my God.
Isn't that objective processing?
That is.
See the mountains?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so in doing all that, what is the question we should be asking ourselves when we're looking at it?
It depends on why you're doing the objective processing. So if you come across an ayat in the Holy Qur'an where Allah says, see this, look at this, there's a lesson to be learned in that, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Praise be to Allah. What just came to my mind when you said all that, a smile came on my face, because the reason I grew to understand why Allah mentions all of his creation, and when you just said, look at this and look at that, I'm asking myself, what is Allah trying to show me? What is the processor? What is the auditor trying to show me? And that all of these things he's telling us to look at in his creation are in obedience to him, in complete submission to him. So that reminds me of how I'm supposed to be in my creation, how he created me, how I'm supposed to be. So yes, sir, that is definitely objective processing.
Thank you, Sister Tina. There's one ayah, it's Surah 56, ayah number 71. It says, see you the fire which you kindle. Well, isn't that objective process? Anytime you're looking at something external, it's objective processing, right?
Yes, sir.
So when Allah says, I have given you a book explaining all things, right? Now, if he says, I have given you a book explaining all things, then all things, this is what's in mathematics is called the law of the excluded middle. It's either this or that. So all things either includes the principles of the science of the mind, or it does not, correct?
Yes.
It has to be one or the other. So that means principles of Dianetics, the science of the mind, is either in the Holy Qur'an or it is not. And then when you apply logic, if we say through what's called the law of the law of contradiction, if we say that the principles of Dianetics are not in the Holy Qur'an, then that negates that ayat and makes that ayat to be false. Then the Holy Qur'an does not give us an explanation of all things. Do you follow that logic?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But since you can't negate that ayat, then the only thing that could be true is the principles of the tech are in the Holy Qur'an. Did L. Ron Hubbard read the Holy Qur'an? Yes, I've gotten confirmation on that from a source that the Holy Qur'an was one of the books that's in his library. So every place in the Holy Qur'an where Allah says, look at or see or look, wouldn't that be the same as objective processing? I would think so, correct? Go ahead, Sister Anya. Sister Anya and then Sister Jasmine.
Looking at Sister Tina's comment, what I found interesting in that was that she said everything that Allah mentions when he says to look at this, see that are things that submit, they're submissive to his will. And so it made me think of the objective processing, is that that's something that you have to do. It takes you through a process of submitting. When they tell you to look at the wall or observe this, observe that, you have to submit yourself to that process. So I thought that was very significant.
And just so you know, Sister Anya, that is actually what they teach in what's called the SRD, the Survival Rundown. The first steps when you're going clear, you have to go through your TRs, and that's exactly what is taught when you deal with TR number 6 and TR number 7. It's about controlling someone and the ability to be controlled. So you're right on point with that, Sister Anya. Thank you. Sister Jasmine.
Yes, I had a question. I just want to get clarity. When you were speaking earlier about, I think it was objective processing, did you say that focuses on the feminine part of Allah energy? What was it that you were saying was for feminine?
Oh, okay. The feminine aspect of thinking. What in science? Whose alarm just went off?
Alarm.
I know. Alarm means smoke. My fireman hat just went. My alarm just went up. Everything all right? Okay. When you deal with thought, two great books to read. One is the Metunetta by Ra Amin Nefer Amin. He gets into the two aspects of the brain. This is something our ancestors knew thousands and thousands of years ago. There's another book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess by Leonard Schlein, who was a neuroscientist. And what they have shown was the left and the right aspects of the brain are two separate aspects they're totally different from one another. The left brain is considered to be masculine and the right brain is considered to be feminine. And they use those terminologies to describe the left and right side of the brain. So when we learn something, we're learning based on the left brain. We're taking it literally. But the right brain can take whatever you learn and manifest it and evolve it into other concepts. Does that make sense?
Yes. When you finish, I want to share with you why I asked the question. Okay.
So think of the left brain like the sperm and the right brain like the womb. So when the thought comes in, you have that coming into the womb. It's one thing coming into the womb, but the womb can manifest it into an infinite number of possibilities, correct?
Yes, and I think that was what I was looking for. Like kind of like confirmation. When I first heard you share that, it made me think of the feminine expression of Allah and his attributes in the secret of God being in the womb. And the more I feel like the more objective processing, this is what I got from it, and I could be wrong, but the more objective processing that we do, it brings out the Allah in us.
Yes.
And so that's what I was thinking. It's like doing that, it makes you see the Allah in yourself and help you manifest the Allah within. And that made me, I don't know, that's what I got from what you were sharing, and I didn't know if that was accurate.
No, so what one of the things that would take place whenever you're doing any of these processes, you continue the process until you have what's called an end phenomena. And when you have the end phenomena, then that auditor will say end of session. Okay, so if you're out and you're looking at the tree and you're looking at the mountain, if you've read the Holy Qur'an and you look at where Allah says, look at the mountain, look at the birds, look at this, and then you go out. When you go for a walk, which is a type of processing, but you go for a walk and you have these ayats in your mind. Look at the bird, look at the tree, look at the mountain, look at this, look at that. What will take place is you'll have an end phenomena. You'll have a cognition. Something will come to you from within yourself. When you have your cognition, that's showing that the process has worked, because the cognition is evidence that you have increased on your tone scale. Because when you have a cognition, how does that make you feel?
Right. So I guess also what made me think about that, and I'm totally in agreement with what you're saying when you were talking about like turn all the other devices out and everything like that. As far as the subjective, when we're dealing with subjective, that's not allowing the Allah to come out, because other things are in the way of him and the Allah within. So when we're doing objective, it's I think it's a more pure form where we'll have a more pure connection to the God within, as opposed to having distractions.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm a firm believer that social media, Instagram, Twitter, now these things, there's positive ways to use these things. Everything, there's a positive and negative in many things. But if we're constantly in our phone and constantly on TV and we're constantly on the internet, if we're constantly looking at other people trying to produce their greatness, then how much time do we spend in trying to promote our own? We're just looking at other people being great. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And,
yes.
and not only that, but I also am a firm believer that, and again, this is just my opinion, but I believe that those individuals that we are told are in the high places are able to manipulate individuals through what they're perceiving on their phones. And I believe that they can determine a person's psychological standing based on what a person is observing through the internet. In other words, your and I history on the internet represents a time track. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And they can build a psychological profile based on our mind is being displayed on our device by the careful mathematical study of our time track. And now when you connect AI to a person's time track and look at what they're observing, then you know all the things, you have a case inventory of a person's mind. Does that make sense?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So you have one group of people that's trying to free a person's mind through processing, and then you have the wickedly wise that are studying our time track, and they'll send something to your phone that won't send it to mine, and what is sent to your phone is not designed specifically to re-stimulate you, to keep you aberrated. So it's what I guess it's what's called black Dianetics. The wickedly wise can take the same concept of Dianetics and use it in reverse to keep us re-stimulated, to keep us aberrated. And that's why people are stuck to their phones. This is a scientific experiment that's being taken place through technology and AI. If we can disconnect from that for a certain amount of time, get away from the Instagram and the Twitter and the Facebook, and just get off the phone and put our mind into a book, or put our mind into this, or put our mind into that, or just sit still. Because one of the first TR you learn is TR0. It's called being there. You just sit there and you do nothing. I've had some of the greatest thoughts come to mind when I sit still and do nothing. But this society is based on keeping us connected to our devices, because then they can really control our thinking. And right now, in the words of one of the greatest movies one of my favorite movies, Dune, the sleeper is awakening. And they got to put the sleeper back asleep. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
60 years, not to exceed 70. And if we use 1955 as the starting point, 60 years not to exceed 70 brings us to 2025. We're right around the corner. So that was just a long-winded response to your statement, Sister Jasmine, but does that make sense?
Oh, yes, sir, definitely.
We got to unplug. We got to unplug sometimes and just get quiet and talk to God.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was just getting confirmation, because I tried to tell, my children and grandchildren that all the time, to stop letting, you don't even have an opportunity for a lot to develop in you when you're constantly on your phone. You don't even know that God exists when you're constantly on that phone. You don't have an opportunity to develop it. So when you shared about the objective process, in which I wasn't familiar with, it just was confirmation. And when you said feminine, I was just thinking about the feminine attributes of Allah, and just the responsibility of the feminine, as far as the kingdom of God. So, but thank you for that.
Oh, praise to Allah. Who is area code 859? Area code 859. Area code 859. If you can hear us, please respond. I don't like removing people from the room. Is this someone that anyone invited? Area code 859?
Let me check, because I did invite a few people. Hold on.
Okay. So if that's someone that you invited, Sister Anya, then that's fine. If not, at the check post, I have to escort them out. That's for real. And I'm going to say this just so we understand why. Sister Shayla?
Yes, I just wanted the sisters, it's explained beautifully, but when you're doing the objectives, remember that our reactive mind does not allow us to be in present time. And the objectives will get you present to right here, right now. Not what happened in the past and not what's coming tomorrow, but right here and right now. When we can be present, we can confront. When we have disagreements, or we don't like people, we hide, we avoid. The objectives will get you present to right here, right now. What you can confront, you can disappear, or you can deal effectively. So that's why the Quran keeps telling us, study the bee. Well, study. It's just something that will really lock us into. When you start observing a bee, you're locked into just to the bee, and you're present. And that is precious. That is valuable, to be present here and now. That's one of the end phenomena of that application. And there is a couple of videos out there that the believers can look up on YouTube. The people, the young people that created these apps, they created it for good. They did. But they are the #1 champion telling you how the technology is affecting the human mind. They themselves, some of them became addicted to it, but they knew. And for example, I have a relationship with all of you on this line. They can send you something about me that they know how you're going to respond. That might not be true, but will make you respond. So they have these files, they do. And this is why our teaching, this is just my belief, my faith in when the minister tell us of a righteousness is the only thing that can protect us about some of these things. So congratulations to doing these objectives. Thank you.
All praise is due to Allah.
Due to Allah.
It
I like
reminds
that.
Sister Shayla where it said, Allah said in Holy Qur'an, when an unrighteous person brings you information,
Yeah.
you'll look into it. So Sister Ani, did we confirm area code 859?
Not
Because I need to see you. Yeah, wear your face.
No, see, here's what we have to understand. The reason why I'm so adamant about that, it was a situation that took place a couple of years ago, when Sister Angela was doing her Zoom meeting, and we had an individual that came on and did some things that were, I'll just say, was not in harmony with our program. So at that time period, I had told Sister Angela, because it's hard to do the Zoom meeting and, you're trying to watch everything. And I said, sister, you focus on that. I'll focus on who's coming in the room. And as soon as someone would come in the room, I would post a little question on the sidebar. Okay, boom, boom, who are you? Blah, blah, blah. And then that was fine. But if you just came to cause problems, then you just got booted. And so I'm very adamant about that. I don't want to go through what we went through with that situation. It was disgusting what this person did. Not saying that person that was just here is that person, but that's a game I'm not playing. All right, let's keep it moving.
Respect, brother. I have a statement I would like to say. This is Brother James,
okay.
41. I had about being in the present moment. I took my 4 grandkids farming, and they all had the phones with them. And I realized that they had such a static state that when we came to the farm, we couldn't farm. Because it's, Grandpa, she looking at me, she touching me, and I don't like you. She rolling her eyes, all of that. I said, okay, I got 2 rules. No phone, leave the phone at home. And number 2, nobody could say nothing to hurt the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And those 2 rules, I say, now, whatever you want to talk about, we can talk about it. But you can't hurt nobody. Say nothing intentionally to hurt. But any discussion, I'm not borrowing none of that. Over time, being in the presence of farming and the insects and the birds and nature, a lot of that stuff left them. And they learned how to work well and appreciate nature and come to a sense of balance over the months.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was quite interesting. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
So thank you.
To Allah. That's beautiful.
We just had to give time for their mental capacitor to run out all that foolishness.
Yes. Yes.
Mental capacitance.
Right. We worked. I didn't let 2 of them break together because that turned into a party. Around noontime, we had 2 55-gallon drums. We turned it over into a muddy slip and slide, let them play. Then after that, we went to get something to eat. Then we came back, had siesta, everybody rest. Didn't want to stress the plants. Till about 3 o'clock, we went back to the field. But it was like they were more humane towards each other. They were curious about nature.
Mm-hmm.
And they start mastering the farming operation after about 2-3 months. They were totally different people, totally different.
Exactly. Thank you, Brother James.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you, dear brother.
I think the last part on this is objective processing says the thing that characterizes objective processes is that they bring about interaction between the individual. And this is exactly what Brother James was just talking about, and the existing physical universe. So this is different than subjective processes in that these interact between the individual and his past or himself. So like Brother James was just saying, the children doing what they were doing in nature was a type of objective processing, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So processing summary, it can be deep or light, and that's either auditing or straight wire. It can be focused internally, which is subjective, and it's actually getting in contact with events on the time track, or it could be externally or objective, getting in touch with the physical universe. So now, can we align the 23rd Psalm with these three types of processing? Again, we're not going through all this today. We want to just touch on the valley of the shadow of death and how is this connected to aberration. And we're going to kind of move kind of swiftly because we're already 2 hours into our work. So what is the valley and what could it represent? What is a shadow? And what would be the shadow of death? So now we can find agreement or ARC between these three concepts and the science of the mind. Can we find agreement with the rest of the 23rd Psalms? Again, that'd be a later time. But now the thing is, if we can marry the 23rd Psalms to the text, what else could we find in the Bible that will show us the inner workings of our mind? Can the Bible be used as a means of learning processing? If one part can teach us, then possibly the whole book could teach us. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, so can we learn about processing from the Bible as well as the Holy Qur'an?
Yes, sir.
So the valley. The valley, by definition, is a depression of the Earth's surface, usually between ranges of hills or mountains, but it also means a low point or condition. It's something that is lacking in real value, sincerity, or substance. It also means false or meaningless. Question: what could the valley represent to each one of us on a mental level? That would be like something that's low on the tone scale, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I would, so for the sake of this, I'm saying the valley could possibly represent tone scale 2.0 and below. Can we find agreement on that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when I was looking up the word valley, I typed in the word valley doing a search in Holy Qur'an, and I came to Surah 20, ayat 12. And I thought it was not a coincidence that 2012 popped up. Because the year 2012 is very significant, right?
Right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I didn't plan it like that. I'm searching for the word valley in the Holy Qur'an, and the first one it brought me to was Surah 20, ayat 12. And then when I read this ayat, I was like, ooh, there's a lot of wisdom in this. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, says, surely I am thy Lord. So take off thy shoes. Surely thou art in the sacred Valley of Tuwa. So then it's like, okay, let's do the word clearing and see if this shows us anything about auditing. So the word takeoff, if we look at that as an idiom or a metaphor, okay, as a metaphor, it says to remove means to discharge. Now, when I put words in red, I'll probably change this in the future because that red is, I'm not really feeling that red. But words in red are words that are also found in the text. So in other words, the word takeoff in Arabic also means to discharge. It means to throw off one's restraints or inhibitions, to have gone through something, and it means to knock out. Now, when I saw the phrase to knock out, I'm like, well, that just brings us to another ayat, right? Hurl truth at falsehood until you knock out its brains.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So to take off thy shoes. So when I look up the word take off, it means to discharge. So I'm like, well, what does the word shoes mean? Well, shoes means another's place, function, or viewpoint. Well, isn't that what auditing is? You're trying to remove someone else's viewpoint?
Yes,
sir. Yes, sir.
So take off thy shoes. What if that's an idiom? What if that's a metaphor? What if when Allah says take off thy shoes, what if that's an idiom for something else? Do we know what an idiom is? An idiom, by definition, is a phrase that if you define the words, if you clear the words in the phrase, it doesn't really show you what the statement means. So if I say someone kicked the bucket, if I define the word kick and I define the word bucket and put those two words together, I'm not going to find the meaning of to pass away or to die. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
But an idiom can also be similar to a formulae or an equation. So when Allah says, take off thy shoes, what if that's an idiom? When you look at the Arabic is saying that to discharge the viewpoint of someone else. Thy shoes, that word in Arabic, na'ala, also means a device that slows, stops, or controls the motion of an object. Well, isn't that an engram?
Yes, sir.
Isn't that a lock?
Yes, sir.
So take off thy shoes could possibly also mean to discharge the locks, right? To remove a circuit. Okay. Does everyone see that, or am I grasping?
Oh no, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it.
Okay. So then if you look at take off thy shoes, then there's what is it about the Valley of Tuwa? So these viewpoints, the things we have to knock out, they're in the Valley of Tuwa. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Now, what is Tuwa?
Oh, we're about to get into it. Tuwa is actually the name of, if you read that in the Holy Qur'an, that's where Allah was speaking to Moses.
Okay.
So it said, take off your shoes. The ground you walk on is pure. The ground you stand on is holy. The Holy Qur'an gives it a name. It's the Valley of Tuwa. But I don't think.
Okay. Wow.
Can we just go back to the definition of valley?
Oh.
Okay, let me pull it up here. So we go to valley. It's a depression of the earth's surface between ranges of hills or mountains. It's a low point or condition. It's a place that's lacking real value, sincerity, or substance.
So if you liken that,
it's like being in a state of apathy.
So if we're in a state of apathy, we're so low on the tone scale, then we can't even appreciate the Allah's word, Tuwa. We can't even appreciate it, right?
Well, you got to wait till you see what Tuwa means.
Okay.
And that's the key, because it's like that whole ayat 2012. That's interesting. Surah 2012, and it's describing us when we first started to study the tech, because we first started studying the tech in 2012, right?
Yes, sir.
But as far as
as a whole, as a nation,
as a whole, well, okay. So now here we clear these words, and take off your shoes is talking about discharging a viewpoint, or getting rid of someone else's, getting rid of something that is inhibiting you. Well, we know we have what's called inhibited ARC, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Another's place, another's function, or another's viewpoint. Well, that's another person's valence, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So take off thy shoes. It's almost like saying, look, get rid of that other person's valence. And that other person's valence is doing what? That's what's slowing or stopping us from accomplishing what we need to accomplish. Why can't we accomplish things we want to accomplish? Because we're stuck in someone else's valence.
Because we other than ourselves.
We are acting other than our own selves.
It's one of our first valences is our parents. Our parents. I think we experienced that initially, the valence of our parents. It's put upon us, and we're, you realize it.
You still there?
Life. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You realize how much of your life you were living that was actually a manifestation or mirror of one of your parents. And then once they leave the physical form and they're no longer there to continue to trigger you in that way, then you start to realize, oh, wait a minute, I have my own whatever. But I was carrying theirs, or I was expressing their valences. But now that they're not here, now I'm kind of, yeah, you start to they start to leave you, and then you start to see yourself and understand who you are on a different level.
But that's not always the case, Sister Sultana, and I'll tell you why. There's 2 points that L. Ron Hubbard makes in the text. He says, number one, he says there's 3 universes. There's your universe, there's the other person's universe, and then there's the universe. And he says that when you're stuck in someone else's universe, then you worship the God that they worship. He might not have said it exactly that way, but whatever God they submitted to is the one you submit to, because you're stuck in their universe. Meaning, if you had a parent that says something can't be done, and doubt is the God of that universe, if you're stuck in their universe, then you submit to the same doubt that they submit to, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, but now here's the thing. Even after the person, the parent has died, L. Ron Hubbard says there's something called the life continuum, meaning when someone dies or failed, because of your connection to that person, you carry on their characteristics in their absence.
Exactly.
Okay, so the way it's said in the Holy Qur'an, it says, well, why do you follow what your fathers said? And he said, well, why do you do what you do? Because that's what our fathers said. And it says, even though they were in error. So that was that. That's the life continuum. You're following something, you know it's wrong, but you still follow it because your mother or your father followed it. So in other words, that's how the Holy Qur'an says it in the text. The way he says it is, we're stuck in someone else's universe. So we have to create. So the original man is the maker, the owner, the planet Earth, God of the universe. We have to produce our own universe.
Exactly.
But when we're dramatizing and when we're aberrated, we are stuck in someone else's universe. So there's an old saying that when a person says it can't be done, they should never interrupt the one that's doing it.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, we got to find the universe.
I'm agreeing with you. You're saying it what I was saying, but you said it better than I said it. You said it in more clear. It was clear. But I'm exactly understanding exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
This is due to a lot. Go ahead, Sister Anya.
One of the reasons I asked you to pull back up the definition of valley is because oftentimes in looking at the definition, we may associate the word valley with meaning something that is low, as in a negative state of mind. The valley is the negative low state of mind. But the valley, as I'm seeing it there, it is a low point or condition, but it is a place. I'm looking at it more as a place, and then when it says an elongate depression of the Earth's surface. So when you look at shoes are on your feet. As you walk, you make a depression into the surface. Or you leave a footprint, you make an impression into the surface. So whatever it is up to us, like you said, that we produce our own universe. So it's up to us to put into the valley what we choose. So it could be a valley that has a beautiful garden.
So you're saying the valley could be a beginning.
A beginning?
No, I'm saying is it like it's like you're saying the valley could represent the beginning of something.
It can represent whatever we put in it, because the as we walk in life, we're creating an impression, we're leaving an impression wherever we walk with whatever we do. So if we choose to be negative in our mind all the time, that's the depression that we're making into the Earth's atmosphere. That's the atmosphere that we're creating. That's the universe that we're producing. So the valley, I'm looking at the valley as the impression that we make, the depression in the Earth's surface.
Okay.
And not so much that the valley is a negative place.
Yes, ma'am.
Because the valley could be a beautiful garden. We use the phrase the valley of decision. Okay, so decision is where you're faced with two or more options. And that can leave you in a state of confusion, not knowing which way to go. And until you clear that up, that's what's in your valley, is indecision for a moment in time, until you finally make that decision. And then you change and give direction to the valley, to the impression that you're making. You talked about the valence that we take on, taking on another's valence, and that's the depression in the surface of the mind that's being left there from another. So then when you get to the phrase, take off thy shoes, as you were saying earlier, you're taking off that, all of those negative thoughts, or the incorrect way the way in which you've looked at a thing. Okay, so what could the valley represent on a mental level? And I'm saying that the valley here represents the impression that you leave there based on your way of thinking. So the valley itself is not necessarily the negative. It's what you put in the valley.
Okay.
That makes it either negative, positive, or whatever.
Yes, ma'am.
And so when you're getting ready to explain to us now what Tuwa means, because that's a sacred valley. And what makes it sacred, I guess you're getting ready to explain to us based on what the definition of Tuwa is. Yes, sir.
Thank you for that. And now, if I could, let me add this that will be in harmony or in an ARC with what you just said. If we look at the valley as a positive aspect, didn't Hagar have to run between the Safa and the Marwa?
Go ahead.
So then she had to run between two mountains, then she was in the valley, right?
Correct.
But that's where she found the well of Zemzem, yes?
Yes, sir.
So it was in the valley that it was something positive. So we can look at it from both sides. So you're absolutely correct, Sister Anya. Thank you for that. Sister Jaslyn.
Hi. Did someone else want to speak? Because that's fine. Oh, okay. When you were sharing, it made me think about the scripture, come out of her, my people, because you said that the ground is holy, in the order for us to receive the promise of Allah. We have to come out of the thinking of our oppressor that has, reconditioned our minds and made us into him. So when they say take off your shoes, take off this thinking of the enemy, the open enemy, and for us to accept our own, so that we can receive the promise, so that we can be worthy of this holy ground that is waiting for us. And I think also, as far from a mental perspective, that of course that would be supreme wisdom, and just our continuing to extract and feed on it, so that we can change. We have to change. I mean, our whole DNA is being changed just with how to eat to live. So
yes, ma'am.
Everything that we release of this world, to me, is taking off our shoes. So,
yes, ma'am. Thank you, Sister.
Salam alaikum. Where's the hand raising button at, so that I could know how to apply it when I have something to say?
When you go down to where it says
reaction.
React.
React. Oh, okay. Like that.
You can raise your hand.
Okay. Yes, sir. I have a question. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Or a statement of what I've been kind of puzzling out. I think the valley could be like a track, right? A person's track.
Mm-hmm.
And the changes to take the shoes off is seem to be a reference to get rid of your point of view on your track so that you can see, because this is a lot talking in the first person of Moses, so you can see from my perspective of the 99 attributes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that makes sense in there like that?
That makes perfect sense.
All right, that's all I wanted to say,
Yes,
dear brother.
Thank
One more thing.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful wisdom for the soul. Man, my soul needed this.
Praise be to Allah.
Oh, praise to Allah. Man, this is refreshing. Thank you, family. I appreciate all y'all.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Sister Denise. And then we got to speed things up a little bit. Go ahead, Sister Denise.
Yes, sir. I knew it was something that was grabbing me, and it was in the study guide. It was Building the Wheel Part 4
mm-hmm.
that dealt with our nature, the nature of us. You know, the owner, the maker, the nature, the natural stuff in study guides 4 when we were talking about that. But after Ishmael had to me so beautifully did what he came to do for our beloved minister, and then he talked about like the valley is wherever we are. It don't necessarily have to be low, but you know we're not up here, okay, and up on top of the mountain or high, okay, and it brings a balance between the two mountains when you're in the valley, because I was thinking about that as far as distraction. It's just a lot of distractions. Mm-hmm. And I know we're told to watch the news, but it's so much distraction out here. You know, our children, they see something pop, they looking in that direction, and I'm gonna have to send it to you, Brother Lukman. It was a silhouette of a human being, and everything that they liked on Facebook or whatever you or I were into, you know, they would put it on there. So when they didn't hear from you, they'll see, they could see your profile. That's the word I was looking for. Mm-hmm. And then build a profile, like you said, on you, on me, build a profile. So, okay, Denise likes butterflies, so let me put something out there. You know, because you're not attentive to everything that's going on anymore. So they have to keep you engaged. Mm-hmm. That's the word. Mm-hmm. Engaged in what they're doing, and then your mind is taken away from studying. Your mind is taken away of things that you desire to make happen. And I thought that was beautiful, the way the brother took the children away from that. You know, because that phone is like, I want to say like a god to them, but they always asking, where's my phone? I said, what did you do when you didn't have it? Mm-hmm. And then they had to think, what did I do? Like, you always had that phone. So I'm glad we're talking about these distractions that stop us from being our great self. Mm-hmm. Because we have so many, whether we carry, when you walk in other people's footsteps, and that was it. But that's not our whole life. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's why improve has to continue. It'll never get old. It will never be like a book that I read when I was in college. The self-improvement is a continual process. Mm-hmm. So you can't improve anymore. And that means you're not here, or I'm not here to improve myself. Yes, sir. So that's what I thought about as the brothers and sisters was talking, and you made me think about that study guide number 4. That was like because that deals with natural things that don't cost. Like you said, see, when it says see, I thank you for that one, because I'm gonna have to go and see, you know, and see in the surahs and even in the Bible.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, so thank you, beloved.
All praise due to Allah. I'll add this to that, what you just said, coming from Closing the Gap, with regards to what you mentioned, distractions and social media. Closing the Gap, page 312 and page 313. This is what it says. I'm gonna read it very quickly. It says this. It says, let's focus for a moment on a few of his words. He said, Islam takes for its base the root meaning of the universe for its religion. Exactly what did he say? He said that we are, or will grow, to be living our lives every day based on an understanding of Allah's root meaning of the universal order of his creation. This implies that we will have studied, learned, and practiced the principles of Islam to the point that we will understand how to live with ourselves and with others in accord with Allah's understanding of his root meaning of and purpose for why he has created what he has created. Then it says, Minister Farrakhan's study guides and sessions are critical to this growth. Obviously, people are presently living their lives throughout America and every part of the earth according to how they choose. But how many of them are living their lives according to the Supreme Being's perfect understanding of the root meaning of the universal order of Allah's creation, in which they were born and are living their lives? How much longer will he allow this? Not long. We have now enrolled in a new school of the most exquisite wisdom imaginable, which was established here in America to prepare us for a new world, God's kingdom, which is growing to include all the peoples of the earth. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said that we are in the kindergarten of Master Farad Muhammad's wisdom. We are moving upwards in our learning in this classroom or kindergarten, which has stages that we as a people have gone through from the 1930s to where we are in the present. My aim with this series of articles is to go beyond the fact of the unusually brilliant mind possessed by Minister Farrakhan, is to witness the fact that he was divinely produced for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's use for our benefit, and to show us the way to grow into our divinity. We must learn to use our study time better. Satan continues to publicize useless knowledge that they admit is based on gossip, conjecture, guesses, slander, half-truths, and outright lies. Let's be careful of his diversions, distractions, tricks, and lies. That's social media 101 right there. Sister Tina.
Oh, yes, sir. Sister Denise, when she said improve, I thought about the prefix to that, imp. So in improvement, get that little devil up out of me. Improvement. Yeah, imp. Yes,
prove the imp.
Prove the imp.
Prove the imp.
Yes, sir.
All right, praise be to Allah. And let us land this plane, because we are coming up on the 3-hour mark. Let me finish up here. Okay, this we already covered. Take off thy shoes. Okay. So I was also looking at discharging, meaning the demon circuit. So not only do we want, and in the word valley, I was looking at the word ally, and I was looking at the prefix for valence. Those are two other words I was looking at in there. But the thing is, take off your shoes could be an idiom. Take off your shoes could be, let's get rid of the viewpoint that we hold that belongs to someone else. But what is this sacred Valley of Tuwa? Okay. So the Arabic sacred Valley of Tuwa, the word valley, which is how we arrived at Surah 20, ayat 12, or 2012, is like 2012 was our valley of decision, wasn't it? Either study the tech or don't, correct?
Yes, sir.
Valley of decision. Valley could also mean, it coming from Arabic, it means that which ruins someone's health. It means to sap one's strength or to destroy someone's life. And you say, well, why would valley be connected to sacred? Well, we're going to address that. And there are other meanings for the word valley, but in the context of how we're applying it with the text. So the valley, so take off your shoes, you're in the sacred Valley of Tuwa. So we're in a lifestyle where our health is being ruined. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
We're in a lifestyle where something is sapping our strength. We're in a valley where we're destroying ourselves. So Allah is saying, take off your shoes. Meaning what? If this is going on in your life, get rid of the viewpoint, get rid of that which is on your time track that is the cause of this effect. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It also means to be absent-minded. The word tuwa means to keep secret, to conceal, to swallow, to enwrap in darkness, to bury the past, to have done something in the past, to harbor something, to lock a secret in one's heart or bosom. So the Valley of Tuwa, in one context, is something that's in our past that's kept secret, that's affecting our health and causing us to lose our life. And Allah is saying, take off your shoes. Well, how could the Valley of Tuwa be sacred? Because the individual is sacred, correct?
That's right.
The individual, you and I are sacred, but don't you and I have secrets from our past that are affecting our health?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Yes,
So
sir.
the things in the Valley of Tuwa are negative, but that valley is still sacred. Everyone here has things from their past, secrets, 4 flows. We have secrets with regards to what's been done to us, what we've done to other people, what we observed done, and what we do to ourselves. And as a result of these 4 flows, or as Sister Naira said, as a result of these 4 devils, it's ruining our health, sapping our strength, and destroying our life. And if it's causing us to be absent-minded, then that's also another a byproduct of being aberrated, correct? So the valley appears to be negative in this context, but it's still sacred the same way that everyone, unless there's individuals here that are clear, we all have our aberrations, but we're still sacred, right?
Yes, sir.
So what do we have to do? We have to take off our shoes. We have to get rid of the valence that we're wearing that doesn't belong to us so that we can clear up our health. So the Valley of Tuwa would no longer be something that is swallowing us, got us in darkness, or keeping us stuck in the past. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Sister Ani.
Okay, I was connecting what you just said and the definition of tuwa, to keep secret, to conceal, to bury the past, to have done something in the past, and the fact that Moses was in a period of his life when he was hiding from his past, because remember, he had killed somebody.
They killed someone.
And so he fled from that area. And then, when he married and served his time with his father-in-law, and it was during this time that these words were said to him. So you know, I'm just connecting all that whole definition there. I see more wisdom in the fact that that was the state Moses was in, hiding from his past, something that he had done, and of course, it may have been known to his new family there, but it was locked inside his bosom, in his heart, what he had done, and so he was fearful of going back to the place where he had done that deed.
So let's look at that for a minute, Sis Ania. So all of us have a past just like Moses, right? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
So it's almost like Allah is saying, look, I know your past. I know everything you've done. I'm not condemning you of your past. Just take off your shoes. Just take off your shoes. So the auditing is what? It's the ability for us to take off that which actually caused us to do the things we did in the past, because those actions didn't belong to us, right?
Yes, sir.
9 times out of 10, what we do present time is based on what was done to us past time, yes?
True.
Yes, sir.
So simply, in my humble opinion, what Allah is saying is, take off your shoes. He's not saying, I'm condemning you because you have what you have and you've done what you've done. He's just saying, take off your shoes.
You know what, Brother Luke, you made me think about Brother Ishmael's message to us. And one of the things that he said that was so impactful, when he said, you don't have to die. You know, it reminded us the grace and mercy of Allah through the you know, his voice and his mouthpiece. Is auditing is let's release. I did not come to condemn you. I came to save you. Just release it.
Yes, ma'am. So can we say that that's the same as saying, take off your shoes? Could we use that as an idiom and say to someone, you know, someone's, you know, oh, I've gone through that. I said, brother, just take off your shoes. Could that be an idiom?
Oh, yes, sir.
All right. Brother, just take off your shoes. You're in the sacred Valley of Tuwa.
It is allegorical also.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It could be allegorical as well. Yes,
because when you look at the whole psalm, I never saw it the way if you did not put the whole psalm on the screen, I would not have got it. You got how many ayat, how many verses in that psalm?
The 23rd psalm, there's 6 verses.
But you had 12 points on the screen.
Right, I put it at 12 points, yes, sir.
Okay. 12 is a very significant number. And we were really discussing the point of take off your shoes and also the valley. And in both ways, if you look at it, the valley is the lowest point if you look at it structurally in the universe or on the planet plane. And the shoes also covers what? The lowest point of your being. Okay, physically. And when you have to take it off, you know, that expose your feet to the element, and also your feet become vulnerable to the pebbles or the how to call those things? Those things that can stick your feet.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Okay. At that point, it makes you vulnerable, and that makes you more obedient. You will not want to walk the way you should. And the valley itself serves 2 purposes. There is a valley of what do you call that? That causes you to go astray. And the valley also is a place of production. Because when you go into debauchery, of course, you are in the valley of, I forget how they call it in the Bible, And that makes everything goes wrong. And the whole society in itself is falling apart. But when you start thinking positively based on the production of to get audited and things of that sort, now your thinking becomes straight, and it allows you to produce, because in the valley, this is where you really find all the production. They do not produce so much in the mountain. They did not produce in the desert or in the forest. It's always in a valley where everything is easy access, because you want to be able to take what you produce back to the market or to society. And this is, to me, that the psalm that you are deciphering today, and I think it's a very important thing that needs to be addressed a little bit more, because there is so much more in it that it's only now it is being revealed. And isn't it true that we are in the time of revelation? So whatever we knew prior to the teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was just, it was not even a wake-up call, because the messenger is the one who gave us the wake-up call. So now that we are being awakened, so no wonder that song come to your mind, and believe it or not, for 2 weeks straight, every time I get in the car and I start talking about the Psalm 23rd, and my wife would continue with it. And one day she said, "Why do you want that psalm all the time?" I said, "I have no idea. It just comes to my mind."
Yes, sir.
And so there is something that Allah wants to reveal. I'm quite sure he has chosen you to make it manifest. Because look how many people are telling you of what is in their mind about it. Is it accidental? I don't think so.
All praise is due to Allah. Yes, sir. Thank you, Brother Eric.
No, I thank you.
All right, let me see if we can land this here. I got a couple of slides left, I think. Okay, we covered that already, that we are sacred. And you did say, you said allegory, and it's right here in the slide, Brother Eric. Could the Valley of Tuwa be an allegory for a secret that one conceals with regards to events that occurred in the past that ruins one's life, saps one's strength, or ruins one's health? Can we say that's true?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Can we see the connection between that verse from the Bible and the tech of Dianetics? So could this be a demo? Could this be a demo that provides information in the form of an allegory that connects our past events to present illnesses? Well, that's called.
Could you repeat that, sir?
I said, could this be a demo that provides information in the form of an allegory that connects our past events to present illnesses? That would be called a psychosomatic illness, correct?
Yes, the valley of the shadow of death, right?
Right. That's what it's all about. Now, here's one of the other words that led me to this one. And this is an awesome ayat to clear. It says, "Nay, we hurl the truth against falsehood, so it knocks out its brains, and lo, it vanishes, and woe to you for what you describe." Now, wait, you see that's in this ayat.
Somebody's phone can somebody?
I got
Can we
it.
put our phones on mute?
Yeah, everyone, put your phones on mute. There we go. That's our problem. Okay. So when you look at hurling truth at falsehood, hurl truth comes from the Arabic word kadatha, which means to discharge. Well, where do you find discharge in the text? Don't we discharge the engrams?
Yes, sir.
So what we're saying is hurling truth in the discharge is saying the same thing, correct? Okay. Falsehood means worthless. It means invalidation. It means to stop. It means to suppress, and it means to hold down. Well, here we go again. Isn't that what we're trying to remove in processing? We're trying to get rid of the invalidations, the suppressions, and the held down sevens.
Yes, sir.
So hurling truth at falsehood, it would be the same as processing held down suppressions and invalidations, or ARC breaks, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, what does it mean by so it knocks out its brains? So if I hurl truth at falsehood, I'm going to knock out its brains. So now how are we going to translate this to Dianetics? So the words in red are actually terms that are used in the text. So we're discharging the invalidations. This is the same as processing, yes? Can we see it so far? Yes, no?
Can you kind of explain it a little bit better, a little bit more?
Hurling truth at falsehood. Hurl truth means to discharge, and the word falsehood in Arabic also means suppression. So when you're auditing, aren't you trying to remove the charge from the engram? Aren't you trying to remove the suppression and the invalidations?
Yes, sir.
It's the invalidation that keeps the person aberrated, and they're dramatizing. Why? Because that demon circuit is an invalidation. It's something that was put down during a time of injury and unconsciousness, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in auditing, what we're trying to do, we're either trying to find a person in order to find the circuit, or we try to find the circuit in order to find the person. But the main thing we're doing is we're removing the charge from that engram. We're removing the invalidation, the suppression, and the held down, yes?
Okay, yes, sir.
So that's the same as saying hurling truth at falsehood. It's just that Allah is saying it and remember, some ayats are decisive, they are the foundation of the book, and some ayats are allegorical. So we could say that the allegorical way Allah speaks in the Holy Qur'an is like a formula. And if we break down the formula or the allegory, then that gives us insight into many other things we can find in the universe. But Allah has said it all in the Holy Qur'an already in the form of allegory. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we're discharging the invalidation. We remove the suppression. We're getting rid of the held down seven. But what does it mean by knocking out its brains? And that's going to be the final part of it. Okay. Knock out the brains of falsehood. So this is almost like a cycle of action. We're going to hurl truth against false. So start is the hurl truth. Against falsehood is the change. And knock out the brains is the stop. So can you see it as a cycle of action? Start, change, stop.
Truth and falsehood. Yes, sir.
So when we're auditing, what's the auditor doing? The auditor is hurling truth, right? Gathering perception, information against the falsehood, the engram it commands. And then knocking out the brains would be the end result of the auditing, right?
Yes, sir.
So when we have pinpointed the engram, what is the result when you find it and then it starts to release? What's the outcome of releasing the engram? What happens to the pre-clear?
Moves up on a tone scale.
No, what happens before they move up on the tone scale? What do they
discharge?
They
get a release.
But what's that release?
Discharge the lock or the...
But what's the physical manifestation that is happening?
Oh, they smile, they laugh, they cry, or whatever.
They cry, right? They cry right before, right? So what does the word knock out its brains in Arabic actually mean?
It hurts.
It means to break, to water, to cause to weep, to evoke tears, to make the eyes water. Oh, what a coincidence.
Yes, sir.
So we're hurling truth against falsehood until we knock out its brains is the same as saying we are discharging the invalidations until we can cause someone to weep or evoke tears. Or am I just reading too far into this? It's just
No. What came to what I pictured is if somebody, I'm looking at it more literal, and pictured it more literal. Somebody knocking out my brain, throwing a brick at my head, and that hurts, so I'm gonna cry.
But that's the way we always looked at hurl truth against falsehood until we knock out its brains.
Yes, sir.
But remember, so this ayat is just in the terms of physics, this would be called the first harmonic. This is the fundamental. But if Allah speaks in the language of formulae, then we can't take these ayats on just one dimension. These ayats are multidimensional, meaning we can look into this ayat, go back to the beginning, go over it again, pick up additional data. We can go over these ayats over and over and over, and we'll keep going. We'll go farther and farther and farther into infinity in understanding it.
Yes, sir.
And
I also, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, and I also saw that when knocking out the brains, it disconnects because the brain is the 10th system and it controls the 9 systems. So if that brain is knocked out, it no longer has control over the 9 systems.
And that's called aberration.
Yes, sir. So you that I can see how one can become free from psychosomatic illness. Yes, sir.
Because remember, the psychosomatic illness, the viewpoint or the thought, the incorrect viewpoint or the incorrect thought produces the chemistry, the chemical imbalance of hormones. That imbalance causes an effect on the nervous system, and that's what begins to produce the psychosomatic illnesses. When you can cause someone to cry, you're removing the stress hormones, and it allows the immune system to begin to heal, and it begins to remove the psychosomatic illness. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So to hurl truth in Arabic means to discharge against falsehood. In Arabic means invalidation or suppressions, and then knocks out at brains means to break or cause someone to weep. Isn't this an allegory or metaphor for Dianetic processing? That's processing summed up in one ayat.
Yes, sir.
Ayat number 21, Surah 21, ayat number 18. The scope of Dianetic processing is right there in one ayat. Hurling truth at falsehood to knock out his brains. Does everyone follow?
Yes, sir.
So here's just a couple of points, and then this is where we end it. So these are some of the words that were in Arabic, but these are the words that are found in Dianetics Book 1. So if there ever was a devil, he invented it to discharge the content, meaning hurl truth, the content of his mind's bank, and the arthritis vanishes. Myopia gets better, heart illnesses decrease, asthma disappears, stomachs function properly, and the whole catalog of ills go away and stays away. Why? Because we're hurling truth at falsehood until we do what? Until we knock out its brains. At 2.0, we reach a level of antagonistic conversation. The individual is apt to nag or to make derogatory comments to invalidate other people. On this level, the individual can only be roused by nagging, nasty cracks, invalidations, and other antagonistic communication. That's Science of Survival, page 101. And then taking off your shoes, meaning other people's viewpoints. It says evil is the opposite of good and is anything which is destructive more than it is constructive along any of the various dynamics. A thing which does more destruction than construction is evil from the viewpoint of the individual, the future, the group, the species, the life or mess that it destroys. So taking off our shoes is the same as giving up the viewpoint of other people that are evil. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
In such cases, it has as if the person's track had been swallowed up, leaving available only the tracks of other valences around the individual. This mechanism is of very limited use. So the track was swallowed up. Valley of Tuwa. And unless the dwindling spiral is interrupted by new lands and mongrel races which escape their aberrative environments, or by the arrival of a means to break the contagion, hurling truth again at falsehood, break the contagion of aberration by clearing individuals, a race will reach downward to the end of the cycle zone 0. Shadow. So it's a valley of the shadow of death. So there's a shadow there. Well, shadow means a dark figure that's cast upon a surface by a body intercepting the rays from a source of light. Here's where we're going to end it. We'll end it with a demo kit. So when I saw this, I said, And you know, when you do book one, you got to take certain concepts and you got to sketch out something that will explain the concept in the form of a demo, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I looked at this definition. I said, okay, what's the elements? I have a source of light. So then I'm going to ask the question, what is the source of light mentally? I'm thinking it could be the analytical mind or the self-accusing spirit. Can you follow that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you have a body that's intersecting the light. Well, that can be the reactive mind or the engram bank, right?
Yes, sir.
And then the dark figure that's cast, I said, well, that's the aberration, yes? So I said, okay, now how can I put this, how can I demo this? So then when I looked at this sketch of an eclipse, I said, okay, here's a solar eclipse. So can the sun represent the analytical mind or the self-accusing spirit? Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
So the earth would represent the individual, yes?
Yes, sir.
So you have this, you have the analytical mind shining light or giving guidance to the individual, but you have this engram bank that's in between blocking the light and casting a shadow, right?
Right.
Yes, sir.
So the area of the shadow would represent the aberration. That's the held down 7. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So that's just a demo kit. If I had to explain to someone the relationship of the analytical mind and the engram bank, the first thing that popped in my mind was the example of a solar eclipse. Because if you look at the moon, and if you read the book called The Flag of Islam, everywhere the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad speaks about the moon, it is almost every spot is equivalent to a description of the reactive mind. And we'll get into that at another time. Go ahead, Sister Anya. This is where we're going to probably begin to wrap it up. Go ahead.
Just a question. Can the shadow also be looked at as the valence, taking on somebody else's valence?
Of course, the shadow can be whatever you want it to be, but yes, it can be, because at that point of the surface of the earth where the shadow is cast, wouldn't that be like the if it's the shadow of the moon, wouldn't that be like the valence of the moon?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because if you look at the word valence and veil, you know, that's like that part of the earth is in the shadow of the moon. If we're aberrated or we're dramatizing, aren't we existing in the shadow of someone who is no longer here?
Right. Yes, sir.
So yes, ma'am, it could be. That's another way of looking at it, of course. Yes, definitely. Quick summary. Can we see the relationship between the 23rd Psalm and the elements of processing? Now, we only did the Valley of the Shadow of Death, but God willing, we're going to go through all 12 steps of 23rd Psalm and connect each point to processing. So if these biblical verses contain information that can be used to represent and understand the concepts of the science of the mind, then what other data is contained in the Bible? So not only are we dealing with the Holy Qur'an now, but we're going to start stepping out into the Bible to see where is processing in the Bible. Because now what happens is, if we have friends or family that we want to kind of get the processing to them, we might not be able to take the route of Dianetics to get to them. We might not be able to get Holy Qur'an or take Islam to get to them. But the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that when you give a baby a bottle, you put some Islam in it. And what that means is, when you want to get medicine into a person, you got to put it in the language that suits the person, correct?
That's right.
So every Christian will submit to the 23rd Psalms, right?
Yes, sir.
23rd Psalm is like, that's like in the church, the 23rd Psalm is it. So now you and I can speak to individuals from the perspective of Christianity, but you can speak the text, but you can put it in the bottle of the 23rd Psalms, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's the end of part 1. Thoughts, questions, concerns, cognitions, and then we will close it out because it is 3 hours. I didn't expect it to take that long. Anyone? All right, that means we can go ahead and close it out.
One silly one. When we get those young people in the mosque, we say the fish, we bring them on. And where do they start? You say they are being processed. Why that language? Because you're taking them from a point of aberration to bring them in a mode of civility. And isn't that what Dianetics is doing with us? Taking us out of our berated mind to bring us to a point where we are more civilized. And what is the duty of a civilized person? Is to teach civilization, isn't it? So that's what I have to say. You are on point.
And I'm glad you said that too, brother, because...
And come back with it.
Yes, sir. See if I can find where I wrote this down. There is another... Okay. I'm glad you said that. So we'll incorporate this. Well, this is coming from Message to the Black Man, page 44. So we know the duty of a civilized person to teach the uncivilized who are savage civilization. But there's another way that the Most High Elijah Muhammad gives it to us on page 44. He says, the duty of the civilized man is to teach civilization to the uncivilized. Then he says, the arts and sciences of civilized people and countries of advanced civilization. So for us to teach the arts and sciences of civilized people, wouldn't we have to first study and learn the arts and sciences of civilized people?
That's what I was going to say. How can we teach something we don't know?
How can we teach something we don't know? So if we're told the science of everything in life, would everything include the science of the mind?
Absolutely.
Or was that something that the Savior didn't include when he said everything?
That's right. And the other group of people we have to take into consideration are the purified one. And the purified one, when you clear the word, is those who are clear. And to be clear means free of that word. Every time I have to see what is with me with that word, that every time I want to say it, it say, no, you're not going to say it. Free from guilt. That's what it means. And who among us doesn't have a moment of guilt? Guilt does not mean necessarily things that you do to others, but you feel guilty for allowing certain things also to happen in your life. Those things that have been done to you. Why didn't I defend that better? And with that, we have to clear those things from our mind. And the mind is the one that really registers everything and is the one that controls everything and is the one that frees us from any impediment. Master Father Muhammad gave us something very heavy to study, but in fact it is light. Lesson number 1 is said to be the student assignment first. Why is that? What am I learning in it? If it's something to study When you study, you learn. And when you learn, it helps you to become able to perform the duty that you have learned. And once you cannot do anything with it, that means there are some misunderstood. Nothing else, misunderstood. And those misunderstood keep us still a slave to ourselves. That's why I'm learning to take up my shoes now, because the shoes is hiding my shame, because the shoes is at the lowest point of my body, and it's hiding the lowest part, isn't it? We think it is only protecting, but at the same time, it's hiding certain things, because some people got some toes that look so ugly, you don't want them to be seen, right?
Keep them corns covered.
That's correct. And now you feel more comfortable when you are in society, because it cannot be seen. Every time we have aspect of our lives that we would not like people to discover or to see. Yeah, we are hiding behind the cloak. We are putting our shoes on. And that's what we are doing right now. Thank you, Brother Luqman. I don't know if anybody else enjoy what you gave today, but personally, I have enjoyed it. I couldn't speak because I was driving at a point. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I could not say a word, but all I have to say, kudos.
All praise due to Allah. Sister Tina, you get the last word today, then we're going to close it up in prayer.
I just have two questions. If anybody, you or Brother Eric or anyone, knows where it is in Message to the Black Man, where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says he doesn't give 2 cents for their scholarship, and where he says that Muhammad Ali, Maulana Muhammad Ali, says that he's the one. That's not the exact words, but if you know what I'm saying, that he's the one, the prophet now or whatever, if you know what I'm saying, because I remember reading that in Message to the Black Man, but I can't seem to find it.
Let's see if I can try to pull it up.
I don't have it near me, but I know I not only bookmark it, I on the market to make sure that whenever I need, I can go and look for it.
I thought I did too, because I thought those 2 points were very, very
You wouldn't give 2 cents?
Important. Yes.
Let me give me 1 second. I'll pull it up right here. Let's see. It might not have been Message to the Black Man. It might have been, let's see.
Our Savior has arrived.
Might have been, yeah.
But the other one about Maulana Muhammad Ali, that was in Message to the Black Man. I remember that, where he says that he's the one, if you know what I'm saying. I can't remember the words that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad put it in, but that he's the one to
Okay, let's see. It says it says, even to the late Maulana Muhammad Ali, who also claimed himself to have been Christ, the Messiah, when he was among the Christians. Let's see, that's
okay. Mm-hmm.
So what quote are we looking for?
That what you just said about he was saying he was the Christ. He thought he was the Christ.
Right. It says there have been many who have risen up in Islam in the past who went in the name of the Mahdi, but were not the true Mahdi. Even to the late Maulana Muhammad Ali, who also claimed himself to have been Christ the Messiah when he was among the Christians, the Jews, the Hindu, and among the Muslims. So yeah, we know that that's not the case. That's
and what page is that?
Mm-hmm. That was page Come on. That was page 287.
287. And about the 2 cents, will not give 2 cents for their scholarship?
I'll have to track that one down. That's not in Message to the Black Man.
Okay.
But I'll track that one down.
Okay.
2 cents. I remember seeing that just recently. I just don't remember which book I saw it in. All right, family. I pray Allah that we got something from this class. We will go more into the 23rd Psalms, Allah willing, in the future.
We got to.
Oh, yeah, that's the plan. I don't know if you saw the first part of the presentation, but it was divided into 3 parts. And so part 1 was just what we did today. And then the other parts, we're going to actually go and touch on each one of the verses from the 23rd Psalm and marry each verse to the tech from the perspective of objective processing as well as subjective processing. So
beautiful. That's all I can say. It's beautiful.
So God willing, we will meet again on Sunday the 20th. I will try to get this. Well, let me go ahead and let me end this here for now. The supporting part, a stable datum, are these words from the Most High Elijah Muhammad. So in Our Savior Has Arrived, on page 81, it says this. The days of Allah God, these are the days of the Son of Man, and the days of the removal of the old world of evil, filth, and righteousness. These are the days of setting up a clean world under the guidance of the original people. In parentheses, he says, Black nation, who were never guilty of doing evil until one of the gods by the name of Yaqub discovered the essence of the black man to make a white man, and Yaqub did just that. He made the white man. Next paragraph. Now, since he has discovered this essence, today we are under the God Allah to do away with that very essence in us, so that no other man can make another people who are different from us. This will never happen again. That is why you are taught that you'll be born again physically. This rebirth is in order to get rid of the wicked material in the very essence of the sperm of the black man. This wicked material will not be in the black man for anyone to use after the removal of the present world and people. Now, based on my kindergarten opinion, this sounds as though there's a process to remove the brown germ. Does that make sense?
100%.
Okay. Sounds like the removal of the brown germ. But if you notice in the first paragraph, he says, these are the days of setting up a clean world under the guidance of the original people of the Black nation. So the original people, Black man in the wilderness of North America, is to be set at the top of civilization, but has to go through a process to remove this brown germ, right?
Yes, sir.
That's what it sounds like.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then he says, you will be caused to grow into a new person, and the nature will be different. It will be the nature of righteousness, and then we cannot sin. In that kind of rebirth, it would be impossible for us to sin. So he's talking about a process where the nature is going to be changed, correct?
Yes.
Now, if you go to Closing the Gap, there's a part in there where it talks about how Alfonso went up into the Caucasus Mountains and found the mother of the Savior and put her through a process.
Mm.
He put her through a process, right?
Right.
So now the question
Yes,
is, the Dianetic process, now even though it was not called Dianetics back then, was there a process in place prior to the Church of Scientology that allowed one to change the nature of another person and remove 7 devils from them?
Wow.
So process, the first inkling of processing we have in our history is from Alfonso. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when the minister said this technology belongs to us, that's true. Because it sounds as though Alfonso processed baby G to prepare her in her womb to produce the Savior. Does that make sense?
100%.
Okay. So just as that process caused her to grow into a new person and her nature was made different to produce the Savior. That's what it said in Our Savior Has Arrived. Then it says, so the days of Allah God, mean the setting up of a new world and a new people. Allah God will not even accept the names that we used in the old world. It says the Holy Qur'an teaches the scholars like this, that I am about to write. I say the scholars, for the average reader cannot understand it, that after the removal of this world, after 20 years, you will not be able to follow and do that which you are now following and doing in this world today. Within 20 years, the thought of this world will vanish from your mind. You will not even be able to remember what this world looked like or what went on in it. Your mind will be clean. Ask the wise scholars and scientists, they will agree with me. So it seems as though the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is talking about a process that sounds as though there's a removal of the brown germ, but this removal of the brown germ is connected to a cleansing of the mind. Does that make sense?
100%.
Okay. Now, the key is this 20-year period. So this is going to happen during a 20-year period of time. Question is, does the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad tell us when the 20 years starts and when it ends? So at the bottom of page number 82, he says this: the days of Allah God mean years of Allah God, and not a 24-hour day. It means years. Then he says, these days or years of judgment. So let's stop right there. In this 20-year period, he uses the word judgment to describe the 20-year period. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, now, in the Divine Destruction of America, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said that grief was going to be a tool that Allah was going to use during the chastisement. But it just so happened, not only did he tell us grief was going to be a tool, but it was through the minister that we got the tech to learn how to remove grief, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I work as a fireman. So it's like a fire's coming, but I'm teaching you how to be firefighters. How to be in the oven of affliction, but not be burned up by it. Does that make sense?
100%.
So then he says, these days are years of judgment according to the Bible and Holy Qur'an will not run over 20 years. He says, and according to the scientists of Islam, the teachings of the Holy Qur'an, which are to be understood, the judgment is to take place between 1,380 and 1,400 years after the death of Muhammad, the son of Abdullah. So based on the words of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, this 20-year period is under the title of the word judgment. Can we agree on that?
Yes, sir.
If the prophet passed in 632 AD, and you add that to 1,380 years, to 1,400 years, that brings us up to the year 2012, to the year 2032. 20 years of mind cleaning and the removal of the brown germ is exactly to the year where the minister introduced Dianetics to the entire nation of Islam. To the year.
Yes,
Is
sir.
not Dianetics mind cleaning?
Yes, sir.
Could the brown germ be the reactive mind?
Come on now.
If aberrations are transmitted genetically, and if the aberrations are transmitted genetically, and genetically is transmitted through the sperm, if you remove the aberrations from the sperm, aren't you removing the reactive mind so that that is no longer transferred into the future genetically?
Yes, sir.
It seems to me that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is talking about a 20-year period where we're going through a process of mind cleaning. The last point is this, it's very interesting. He says, He talks about white people. He says the only white people who have a name that is any good are ones who have of these names of Allah God. He says a lot of white people go in the names of Allah, but there are a lot of white believers in Islam. I have met many of them, and they are sincere in their faith. There will be quite a few thousand in America. When the time comes, you will learn of them, but you will not learn of them at the present time. Question. When we come in contact with individuals at the Church of Scientology, who are we really coming in contact with? That's just a thought that I throw out there. So
would that be also possibly, because I believe me, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I went to prison a few times. You know, I'm a recovering nigga. I ain't quite recovered yet.
We all are,
working
brother.
So I ran up on Dianetics in prison in 2011 or 12. And it was, I think it was 11. It was a Caucasian gentleman that was sharing it with me. And that was the second time. Now, before that, I was, I went to meet with in the headquarters in Hollywood, gentleman for, because I'm a writer, and it was about a movie script. And I'm there, and he's trying to get me to come on board, and he's showing me things. And then the nation goes and is a part of that reality. And I said, okay, something's there. There really is. So this is not by accident. So I know that whole reality, the leader was on point 100% when he said that. So I'm in agreement, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sister Anya, then I'm going to show you one picture, and then we're going to wrap it up. Go ahead, Sister Anya.
Yes, sir. So I was looking at the next paragraph on page 82, where he gives another reference, and he says, according to the scholars and scientists of Christianity, he says they have it just about right too. The time that they say the judgment will come is based on 2000 years after the death of Jesus. And then he says, this is right. And then he makes a third reference. He says, and in the Bible, in the book of Daniel and Revelations, the time is given if understood. So just wanted to, if we could, do you know what year they say was the death of Jesus?
Ooh, that I don't know.
Or does anyone know that?
Let's pull it up. Death of Jesus. AD 30. I got on one. Or AD 33. That would be 2032, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that comes up with that same time frame. So, so then I'm also wondering too what references would be referring to in the book of Daniel and in the book of Revelations. Because if we're to prove all things, then we need to go in search of knowledge.
Yes, ma'am.
And see what references we can find there to also add more stable datum to this point.
So that's going to be another assignment.
Yes, sir.
Now, last but not least, just want to pull up. Hey, let's see if I can find this real quick. If I can't find it quickly, then I'll just save it for another time. I don't want to take up too much more time. Let's see, I thought it would be, nope, it would be here.
Brother Lukeman,
Yes.
while you that same conversation about the book of Daniel, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Brother Jibril puts it in, is it possible that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is still alive? It's right there. I can't remember the page though, so that when I get in, I'm gonna look it up. It's there.
It is. Okay. I had that book and I don't know what in the world happened to it. Let's see.
Sister Shayla?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what do you remember some of the wording?
It's Brother Jibril added down to the science, to the date, to the day that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was going to depart. And it's in the book of Daniel. I don't have my notes in front of me and I don't recall, but it's in the context of the timing. And we just got to bring that up to modern time.
I wish I had my book. I don't know where my book must have got lost somewhere.
I don't have my book with me. I can find it. Because I marked it in the book.
One sec. I can't find the picture I'm looking for, but we're told that maybe I can pull it this way. I'll do this for another time. I don't want to take up too much time. But if you look at the fact in our teachings, it talks about a red star and a blue star.
Yes.
And if you look at the flag of the Sea Org, I'll see if I can pull this up, just this portion of the flag. You can see this, right? This is the crest for the Sea Org. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay. If you turn that on the side, that's the same as a star and a crescent. And this is actually in blue. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You can put our star and crescent right next to this, and it's the same. It's pretty much the same. It's like the same thing. We both have a star and crescent, except ours is the star and the moon. Theirs is a star and like a wreath. But they're very, very similar. Our flag is red and theirs is dealing with blue. So could that mean the coming together of the blue and the red every 50,000 years? Just something to think about. Just something to shoot around in the brain a little bit. So, well, that's all I have, family.
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
All praise due to Allah. Yeah, brother, connect with me on Facebook. Leave some comments as you're going through the YouTube channel. If you see any mistakes, any improvements, any thoughts and questions, drop me a line. We typically do this twice a week, Sunday evening at 6 p.m. and Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock. And we will keep it moving.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Sister Aya. Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right, family.
Yes, sir. All praises due to Allah.
Until next time, if you have any ideas, shoot them to me through the email or through the text. If anyone is not on our text line, put your phone number in the chat, and I'll put you on the text line. So if anything goes out via phone, you'll get it directly to your phone as well.
Yes, sir.
All righty, family. May Allah continue to bless us. I'll wait a few minutes to see who puts the info on the chat, and then we will wrap it up and call it a day.
Thank you,
I put my
family.
email.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, you're very welcome. May Allah continue to bless us all.
Yes. Thank you. I put my email, good brother, in the chat, craigpaul1555@gmail. So
Let's see. Let me see if I can see it here. I got you. Okay, yep, I got it. 1555. Okay, so I'll update all that and keep everybody informed.
thank you, family.
Uh,
Allah bless all of you.
Yes, sir.
Alaikum salam.